Throne of the North. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 151, Druid from the Winter Forest. Brock's eyes were glowing. The moment he walked into a shop, his eyes were fixed on every piece of extraordinary metal. Rainbow crystal, turquoise, dragon blood gold. Brock kept saying the names of some extraordinary materials. He was verifying the knowledge of extraordinary materials he got from the Clayton family. In Swatifer, he had never come into contact with extraordinary materials. After coming to this world, he naturally greedily absorbed all extraordinary knowledge. This Golden Knight craftsman was like a devout scholar at this moment. Hey, don't touch it if you don't want to buy it. A hand tightly grasped Brock's wrist, and then both of them looked at each other with a big beard in surprise. Golden Knight, what a powerful force. The two spoke almost at the same time, but the next moment the shopkeeper came back to his senses. In this imperial capital of Floor, the Golden Knight is not a rare species, but Brock's performance to him really doesn't look like a knight. Behind him, Ryan saw something, and he stared at the shop owner who had just made a move in surprise. Druid, Raistlin Wyatt looked at Ryan, a nobleman. Living in the imperial capital, he was always looking for someone to confirm their identity. Nobles were nothing in the Floor imperial capital, but they could not be underestimated, especially since this noble had powerful knights under his command. Ryan Clayton. Ryan nodded to Raistlin and introduced himself. The Clayton family. Raistlin's eyes widened as he looked at Ryan. Not long ago, Earl Clayton rode a dragon to the imperial palace. This incident caused an uproar in the entire city. Countless people were excited and noisy, and they actually saw the existence of the Dragon Knight with their own eyes. Earl Clayton is my father, Ryan said without denying it. Raistlin's expression suddenly became interesting, and after a long time, he forced out a kind smile. What do you want to buy from me, noble master? Raistlin pronounced the word "buy" very clearly. Ryan looked at Brock and said, from the primary level to the advanced level, bring them all out for us to see. Primary level materials. Raistlin frowned and shook his head. You should go to the Chamber of Commerce on Mary Street next door to find those things, my noble lord. There are no low-level extraordinary materials in Palmyra. This is only the high-end market. Ryan looked at Brock and said, high-level materials require a large number to match forging. Can you pick out a suitable material? Brock hadn't spoken yet, but Raistlin laughed. From the names of the extraordinary metals that this guy just mentioned, I already know what he is going to do. After saying that, he looked at Brock again, and the two bearded men looked at each other at this moment. You want to forge a saddle? Rainbow crystal can perfectly penetrate the blood and ki, so that the mount and the owner can communicate with each other and not be squeezed by the saddle. Turquoise can ensure that the mount is not oppressed by various breaths, especially the breath left by powerful monsters. Dragon blood gold can cleanse the blood of the mount, and the tears of giants can protect the fragile eyes. You are lucky. I specially took out these things to trade during the God's Grace Festival this year. Otherwise, you can't get these extraordinary materials without squatting for several months. As for the price of these things, Raistlin looked at Ryan. Rainbow crystal is worth 1,200 gold coins, palm-sized turquoise is worth 900 gold coins, and dragon blood gold is worth 800 gold coins. The total value of these materials is more than 3,500. I will give you a discount of 3,500 gold coins. So expensive? Ryan was a little surprised. He knew that high-level extraordinary materials would not be cheap, but he didn't expect it to be so expensive. How about going to other places to have a look? Etria was not unaware of the value of gold coins, and his eyes widened at this moment. Raistlin spoke at this time. The whole Palmyra Street, other extraordinary materials are okay, but you will never find another store that sells giant steers and turquoise. Ryan then remembered the origin of this druid. Turquoise is the specialty of the winter forest in the north. Give me the money, Ryan said calmly, then printed his badge on the contract that Raistlin took out and told Raistlin an address. 3,500 gold coins is not a small number, and Ryan can't always carry it with him. The reputation of the nobles can make Raistlin believe that the transaction is completed. He will naturally take the contract and extraordinary materials to the manor to settle the money and goods. However, Ryan did not leave immediately, but looked at Raistlin. I have another deal here. Druid of the Winter Forest, Are you willing to trade with me? At this moment, Ryan was not only facing Raistlin, but also the tribe from the winter forest behind him. I want 1,000 beast bows, and if possible, I want to invite a few druids to follow me to my territory, not as followers, but to use the power of druids to develop my territory. This is a deal. I will pay 15,000 gold coins for 1,000 beast bows. If you invite druids, Ryan looked at Raistlin and said, if they are all as powerful as Mr. Raistlin, I am willing to pay 50,000 gold coins per person per year, and sign a contract for at least 3 years. Ryan's words made Raistlin's eyes widen. 50,000 gold coins. This price is terribly high, but he soon shook his head. I won't go. As a powerful druid, he still has too many things to do. He only comes to the Imperial City to sell materials before the God's Grace Festival at the end of each year. Normally, he is very busy. I can't make the decision on this deal myself. I will give you an answer in 2 days. Ryan nodded and did not refuse. He knew that the other party needed to investigate a specific identity. If he could earn tens of thousands of gold coins in a month before the God's Grace Festival, Ryan believed that Raistlin would not refuse. One of Ryan's ideas for going south this time was to buy a longbow, which would be a huge advantage on the battlefield. However, there were only a few people in the entire Northwind province who could weave and forge it. As for the help that the druids would provide to the development of his territory, it would be huge. You have to know that the winter forest is the territory of the elves, and even the elves acquiesce to the existence of the druids, so you can imagine. Whether it is the mountains and forests or the land, the druids have the means to guarantee it. That is, they can help Ryan stabilize the cultivated land he has opened up. The frozen land territory cannot always rely on purchasing food from outside to survive. Chapter 152 Imperial Magic Academy. After leaving the shop called Winter Forest, Ryan and his companions no longer had the idea of strolling around. There was no other way. Just a few steps would cost thousands or tens of thousands of gold coins. Did Ryan really think he was rich? If he hadn't fought a few battles in the Northwind province, as a northern baron, Ryan's annual output value would not exceed 2,000 gold coins. A baron like Baron Hatton would only have a net income of 2,000 or 3,000 a year. Now it should be around 3,000 or 4,000, but it is still a drop in the bucket compared to the prices in the imperial capital. The income of a baron's territory can only be earned by walking around a shop on Palmyra Street. With these things, Winter will grow up quickly, Brock said excitedly. They all knew that Winter was not an ordinary horse. Thinking of this, Ryan felt better. The money would not be wasted. However, this also reminded him of one of the purposes of coming to the south this time. He needed potions and means to cultivate war horses. He even wanted to win over some magicians and become the exclusive magicians of his frozen land territory. For a noble territory, there are only two most important extraordinary people. One is a knight who can achieve success by enduring hardships, and the other is a magician who has no other choice but talent. Ryan has no shortage of knights, but he has no magicians. Although Master Luna is a powerful great magician, she is now in the form of a golem puppet and cannot complete any magic research or spells. Potions are delicate work. There is only one place in the imperial capital that has warhorse training in potions, and that is the magic tower belonging to the royal family. However, the royal family will never let the potion formula for warhorses leak out. In this case, there is only one place that may have it. Ryan came to the most watched place in the imperial capital, the Magic Academy. Since the struggle between theocracy and royal power, after the church withdrew from the empire began to introduce other extraordinary people, and magicians are of course the most important. For this reason, the empire built a magic academy in the imperial capital at all costs. The Knight Academy and the Magic Academy are the result of the empire's struggle with theocracy. After the Holy See was driven away, the empire replaced the Holy See and began to recruit talented people from the civilians for training. It must be said that the current emperor of the empire, Columbus III, was really bold and far-sighted when he was young. The emergence of the two academies has almost increased the empire's strength in all aspects by 10%. As the only empire on the continent, 10% can even be compared to half a kingdom. The Knight Academy is fine, after all, it requires a lot of resources to accumulate, so most of the knights in it are also descendants of the power class. But the Magic Academy is different. Magicians are an extraordinary system that relies heavily on talent. As long as there is talent, it's fine. If the talent is high enough, The Magic Academy will be eager to train. No extra effort is needed. This is the arrogance of the wizard. The Empire previously allocated 1 million gold coins for the annual repair of the Northwind province. This amount is also the financial support that the Magic Academy can get every year. How many people and how large is the territory of the Northwind province? The Magic Academy has only a few thousand people at most. However, considering that the establishment of the Magic Academy directly attracted the arrival of several legendary wizards, no one said anything. Just like Ryan invited Raceland, a druid who might be comparable to the peak Golden Knight, and asked for 50,000 gold coins a year. Is this high? It was so high that he could even invite a sanctuary wizard or even a legend to help him do something. But what Ryan valued was not this, but the influence that Raceland, a druid, could bring once he was in his territory. 50,000 gold coins were not only for a druid, but also for the followers around the druid, that elite team. Even the appearance of the druid would attract more extraordinary people in this field to enter his frozen land territory. Those extraordinary people might be persuaded by Ryan to be loyal to him because of the existence of the druid. The extraordinary people also have their own circles, just like the shops on the streets of Palmyra. Behind each shop, there are powerful extraordinary people. Do they know each other? Absolutely. The appearance of a druid is equivalent to opening the conditions for the extraordinary circle. Of course, magicians can also do it. 1,000 gold coins are worth a lot of money. Ryan came to the south this time, not just to be a small transparent baron. He has a lot of money in his hands. The wealth brought by the war will be meaningless if it cannot be turned into powerful force. The Magic Academy has arrived. Looking up, Ryan can see the gray and white buildings at the end of the wide street in front of him, as well as dozens of tall wizard towers in the buildings. Each of these towers represents the existence of at least a great wizard. Thousands of magicians in the Magic Academy are surrounded by these wizard towers. They are both students and assistants. Every place where a great wizard is located will naturally gather a large number of magicians. Not to mention anything else, the power of this Magic Academy can subvert the entire Northwind province. The strength of the Empire, no wonder it can become a beacon of the southern land. Ryan came without any preparation, because he had been in the imperial capital and knew what kind of group there was outside the Magic Academy. How many people in the entire empire, the imperial capital, want to invite magicians from the Magic Academy? Or want to ask the magicians inside to do things? However, it is difficult for outsiders to enter the Magic Academy, so there will inevitably be a group of intermediaries. Don't underestimate these intermediaries. They are not ordinary people, but children of nobles, or relatives and friends of a magician in the Magic Academy. Usually, these two identities belong to the same person. Magicians are also short of money. It can even be said that no one is more short of money than them, so it is not so strange for magicians to take private jobs. Outsiders may only see the owners of those dozens of towers, but Ryan knows very well that whether it is a knight or a magician, there are too many poor and unfulfilled guys. Because of their lack of talent and resources, they are simply bleak compared to those dazzling people. Aloof? Magicians are arrogant, but they are never aloof. Otherwise, when the Magic Academy was established, there were 3 legends, and there would be nothing to say. There are thousands of magicians in the Magic Academy now. Among them, it is good to have 1 or 2 who can become legends by chance. After a few years or more than 10 years, after this batch of magicians leave the Magic Academy, how many of the new batch can become legends? Although there seem to be many powerful transcendents in the imperial capital, they are almost all old guys. Most of those legends broke through in the previous pan-dimensional War of Gods. Chapter 153 Old Friends with Different Lives. Ryan didn't need to move. Naturally there would be people with vision coming to him, but Ryan didn't expect to meet an acquaintance. You are Jovan. Ryan was a little surprised. Jovan Dean, the heir of the Viscount Dean family of the Empire, was neither the eldest nor the second son, so of course he had no right to obtain any rights. It can be said that he was in a similar position to Ryan back then. He lived a life of idleness with some wealth given to him by the family. The two were considered friends, but in the past, it could be said that every noble heir like them was a friend to each other. So, they were not close. Jovan looked at Ryan in shock, who was dressed gorgeously and had guards beside him. Of course he knew what Ryan was doing. He went to the poorest and most miserable place in the north to become a baron, and people in the circle used to make fun of Ryan. But Jovan knew that the reason why those people were obsessed with Ryan, who had left, was because they envied him. Baron, a noble of the Empire. No matter what, Ryan's future would be different from theirs. They laughed at him purely because they thought that they could only do this to make themselves superior. Look, Ryan, who is the same as us, went to the poorest and coldest frontier of the Empire to become a baron. It's too miserable. The more disdain Ryan showed on the surface, the more unwilling and envious he was in his heart. But now, looking at Ryan's appearance, he didn't look like a miserable barbarian who would be ravaged by the wind and snow in the north. He knew that those people didn't even have the qualifications to laugh at and disdain him on the surface. Joven has grown up. He is 1 or 2 years older than Ryan, so he knows that there is a huge difference between his status and Ryan. Once the noble lord system is implemented, the status of the 5th-class nobles will be raised to a higher level. At that time, they will not even be qualified to see Ryan. Thinking of this, Joven felt a little bitter and restrained. He was in the Dean family. He was not talented and was not favored. The wealth distributed by the family could only allow him to maintain a normal life. If he wanted to live a better life, he could only work hard. The Dean family was not rich, and because it had been passed down for too many years, many rights could not be inherited even by the children of the Viscount today. If they can, then can't their grandfather's children, that is, their father's brothers? What about their grandfather's brothers? Aren't they all the sons of older nobles? Baron Ryan, do you want to enter the Magic Academy? Joven smiled, as if he had forgotten the relationship between him and Ryan. Joven, you don't have to be like this, Ryan sighed and said, then spoke. Do you know which wizards in the Magic Academy are good at training mounts? Especially war horses. Listening to Ryan's question, Joven was a little confused. He didn't dare to make bold guesses in his heart. He could only pretend to be cheerful and speak truthfully. Ryan, there are no wizards in the Magic Academy who are good at what you said. There is, and there is only one. Joven raised his hand and pointed to a tall tower. Ryan looked over. The tower was dark red all over, which was out of tune with the architecture of the Magic Academy. Master McKen had rejected the royal invitation 3 times. He was unwilling to go to the Highland Wizard Tower. So he became the only wizard in the Magic Academy who was good at beast life potions, but Joven looked at Ryan with some embarrassment. Ryan, you should understand that if many mages cannot stay in the Mage Academy and rely on the Grand Mage after graduation, then it is best to become a vassal of a noble and serve them, and the nobles all want to get the life potion that the warhorse takes. If they can learn something from Grand Mage McKen, the magicians will be very popular with the nobles after graduation. Even before they graduate, there will be nobles coming to them, so it is difficult for even the apprentices in the Magic Academy to see Grand Mage McKen. If you want to see him, not every magician will seek powerful power and spells. There are many magicians from poor families in the Magic Academy. They mature very early, so they know that their talents are not high, so pursuing benefits becomes the only choice left. Of course, the nobles want to rely on themselves to own expensive war horses, so the apprentices or assistants of the Magic Academies are of course willing to learn in this regard. But obviously, Grand Mage McKen, who had refused the invitation of the royal family and other great nobles, is not a person who is greedy for money. Do you have a way to get Archmage McKen to see me? Ryan asked, but after hesitating, he took a step back. Just let him know that I want to see him, not to mention that I'm here for the warhorse training. Joven also hesitated. He was just an intermediary. In addition to the owners of the dozens of high towers in the Magic Academy, there were many magicians that he was not qualified to see. Ryan's request was a bit too high for him. 100 gold coins, whether it succeeds or not. If you can let me see that Archmage, I'll give you another 200 gold coins. This price was undoubtedly high, but who made the Magic Academy have only this one person who could meet Ryan's requirements? Ryan, how about I help you contact an assistant of Archmage McKen, a wizard? Joven said hesitantly. Can that wizard meet my requirements? Joven stopped talking. The reason why he was sure that the answer Ryan wanted could only be obtained from the Great Wizard McKen was because the Great Wizard had a strange personality. The other people in the Wizard Tower were just tools, and no one became the Great Wizard's disciple. Therefore, he could not be sure. The gap between him and the Great Wizard was still too big, but looking at the other party's appearance, Ryan still understood the difficulty here. Forget it, 100 gold coins, you help me contact the wizard, and I will talk to him. Really? Joven's eyes suddenly widened, and then he left quickly with joy and ran towards the gate of the Magic Academy. It seems that these intermediaries are also recognized by the Magic Academy. Soon, Ryan saw a woman with fluffy hair, as if she had just woken up. But Ryan was more inclined to believe that this woman had not slept for many days, and the eyes between the dark circles did not have much spirit. Sister Yelena, this is Baron Ryan, a powerful nobleman who has the blood of Earl Clayton's family. Joven said the best things about Ryan as much as possible, although in his heart he didn't think Ryan could do anything in a place like the Frozen Territory. Chapter 154, Master McKen. Leon, this is Yelena, a powerful magician who has been with Archmage McKen for 3 years, Joven said, and then he became a little embarrassed, because apart from that, he and the two had no more common language. Ryan nodded, and Atriel beside him took out a purse and handed it to Joven. After taking the purse, Joven smiled and said goodbye to the two, and quickly disappeared into the crowd in the distance, as if he didn't want to see Ryan again. Perhaps, there was a huge gap in his heart at this moment. Ryan looked at Yelena, and then several people came to the tavern across the road. It was called a tavern, but Ryan felt that it was more like a combination of a tavern and a restaurant. There was a flag with a lion at the door, indicating that this place belonged to the royal property. Yelena obviously didn't have much mood to communicate with Ryan. She swallowed the pastries on the silver plate without caring about her image, and said indistinctly, "You want to see my teacher? It's not easy, so there's still a chance, right?" Ryan looked at Yelena, who seemed to have not eaten for 3 days, and pushed the food in front of him. After eating the food, Yelena seemed to finally come alive. She suddenly looked up at Ryan's handsome face, black hair and red eyes, and Yelena couldn't help blushing, and then screamed. Ah! A pair of eyes were attracted, and then Yelena hurriedly ran into the interior of the tavern. A moment later, Yelena, who looked delicate, came out again. She looked at the mess on the table with a blushing face. "Sorry, I haven't eaten for a long time. I've been relying on potions, it's okay." It seems that the magic tower of Grand Mage McKen is very busy. Ryan looked at Yelena. The magicians gathered in the mage tower were either conducting magic research and trying spells, or working. Yes, work. Those magic potions did not fall from the sky. The nobles needed magic potions, and the extraordinary people of various systems also needed them. This is also the main source of income for magicians. With money, they can meditate and practice better. Especially as Joven said, Grand Mage McKen has no disciples, which means that these people need to pay for everything themselves. It's too miserable. In fact, Yelena's talent should be the best one, otherwise she would not be able to become a magician at such a young age, and she would not be able to enter the mage tower and rely on a Grand Mage. Therefore, if the mage tower of Grand Mage McKen is very busy, it means that the Grand Mage may not be short of money. Not short of money, this will make Ryan very embarrassed. No, it's just that something went wrong in my own magic research room, and I need to fix it myself, Yelena said with a blush. She was short of money now. "I can help you meet the Archmage. How much money can you give me?" It was quite direct. 200 gold coins, how about it? 200, Yelena's eyes lit up, and the way she looked at Ryan changed. "Then let's put it this way," Yelena agreed easily, and then looked at Ryan with some hesitation. "I am also a life magician. I am good at stimulating the activity of plants. The magic system I learned is similar to that of Archmage McKen. If you have any needs, maybe I can help you," Yelena said with a blush. Her eyes flickered and she looked around, as if intercepting the Archmage's list made her very scared. "Oh? Then your spells and research involve warhorses." Yelena is not an ordinary mage apprentice, she has her own magic research room and technology. Ryan is not surprised. "Ah," Yelena opened her eyes wide, and then shook her head. "I am good at activating plants, not flesh and blood." "Plants?" Ryan pondered, then looked at Yelena with a slightly bright look in his eyes. "Yelena, are you a noble?" No, Yelena didn't know why Ryan asked this. "Then are you willing to become a magician in my territory?" Yelena looked at Ryan with wide eyes and asked, "Do you want me to be loyal to you? If your magician is good at fighting, it's okay, but if you don't want to, maybe we can do it in a cooperative way, life magic, and bias towards plant magic." This Yelena is very crooked on the road of magic. However, the difference between wood magicians and life magicians is not too far. Of course, the key thing for Ryan is that he thought of the help that Yelena might be able to give him, that is, food. It is difficult to define the growth of food as requiring wood magicians or life magic, but Yelena in front of him looks very suitable. She will not let the food grow wildly like a wood magician, but she has life magic that increases the growth of food. Of course, this is all Ryan's own guess, and whether it is true or not, it still needs practice. Yelena stood up. She didn't seem to have this idea. I'll take you to see the Archmage. Ryan's expression was a little strange. He had heard what Joven said before, and thought that this Archmage was hard to see. How come it looks like he can see him at any time now? With a wizard leading the way, the soldiers of the Magic Academy naturally wouldn't stop Ryan. More than 10 minutes later, Ryan saw Archmage McKen. A refined old man wearing a wizard robe like an aristocrat and a snow-white beard. When Ryan saw him, Archmage McKen was sitting by the window, enjoying the sunbath and intoxicated by the wine. The cyan liquid in the transparent glass in his hand was shaking slightly. This teacher, I brought you a noble. Oh, Yelena, how much did you make from this? Yelena widened her eyes, but still said, 250. Well, not bad, half of it belongs to me, Archmage McKen said casually, without turning his head, and asked 3 questions directly. Where are you from, what level, and what kind of noble do you work for? The other party's 3 simple questions made Ryan seem to realize something, but he laughed the next moment. Ryan, the Baron of the frozen territory of the Northern Wind Province, as for what he does, selling minerals is considered a job. Hearing Ryan's words, Master McKen turned his head at once, looked at Ryan with burning eyes, and suddenly laughed. Baron, yes, Northern Wind Province, the freezing cold province, yes, ha ha ha, come on, Baron Ryan, sit down. Yelena, what are you doing standing there? Hurry up and bring out my seabird heart and pour it for our Baron Ryan. Looking at Yelena standing still, Master McKen waved his hand directly. I won't charge you this time, okay, I'll go right away. Yelena ran away happily. Chapter 155, 100,000 gold coins and 1 month of trading. Seabird heart, a fine wine from the west coast, is said to be brewed from some seaweed from the deep sea and some extraordinary materials. It tastes surprisingly salty. Ryan just took a sip and put it down. Baron Ryan, you came here this time to trade warhorse life potions with me, right? Archmage McKen said directly. The Archmage patted his chest and said confidently, the Beast Ambition series of life potions that I personally researched are absolutely the best. Ryan did not respond immediately, but continued to ask, Archmage McKen, if I remember correctly, breeding ordinary horses into warhorses requires more than just magic life potions. The daily dry food and materials also need to be perfected, especially when they are matched with magic potions. You only sell me magic life potions, and the warhorses you breed are probably not even half as good as the Highland warhorses. Tell me, is this the best? Ryan's words made Archmage McKen stare at him closely. Even without those things, it is at least 90% of the physical fitness of the Highland warhorse. How can it be only half? So, it is still not the best, right? What do you want? Archmage McKen stared at Ryan, as if he wanted to see something from his eyes. I want Archmage McKen's entire training system for warhorses, from birth to death. After Ryan finished speaking, Archmage McKen laughed. This is not just the life potion needed by warhorses, but also the training of horsemen. Every horseman is at least a knight and a magic apprentice. He stared at Ryan. You are a northern baron, what do you want these things for? Archmage McKen seemed to have thought of something, staring at Ryan. You are not buying these things for the Clayton family, are you? Obviously Archmage McKen not only thought that Ryan did not need and had enough money to buy so many things, but also doubted his purpose. After all, Ryan belonged to the Clayton family. If Earl Clayton wanted what he had, he would have this motivation not only in terms of money, but also in terms of demand. The Clayton family. Ryan was speechless, then smiled. Master McKen, you are not a noble, right? What does this have to do with whether you are a noble or not? If Master McKen was a noble, you wouldn't ask this question. Ryan stretched out his hand, which had a ring on it, and the outline of Rhinohorn Mountain was engraved on the ring. I, Baron Ryan Clayton, Lord of the frozen territory of the Northern Wind Province of the Empire, I am a noble first, and then the son of Earl Clayton. Master McKen was indeed not a noble. Listening to Ryan's words, he naturally didn't understand that there was a difference between nobles, even fathers and sons. So what if you took my things and gave them to the Clayton family? This is not a small amount. If you don't have the support of the Clayton family, do you have money? Ryan didn't answer, but looked at Master McKen curiously. Master, it seems that you can't do business with the great nobles. After communicating for so long, If Ryan still couldn't hear the alienation between Master McKen and the great nobles in his words, then he would have been a baron for so long in vain. Archmage McKen glanced at Ryan, neither denying nor confirming. Ryan understood and said tentatively, "So, it's the royal family's fault? The royal family doesn't want your knowledge of war horses to fall into the hands of those nobles. Because the nobles have the ability to train war horses that can compete with Highland war horses." Archmage McKen snorted coldly, tacitly agreeing with Ryan's guess. This Archmage is very poor, so poor that he is unwilling to let go of dozens of gold coins. If he really has the magical knowledge to breed Highland war horses, how could he be short of money? He is not incapable, then someone can only stop him from making money. According to Joven, Archmage McKen once refused the royal family's invitation to go to the Highland Mage Corps, which is a mage corps that specializes in breeding and researching war horses. This Archmage has conflicts with the royal family or the Highland Mage Corps. Ryan tends to the latter, because if Archmage McKen has a grudge against the royal family, he may not even be able to stay in the Magic Academy. If that's the case, the knowledge of war horses of this great wizard McKen might be even more valuable than Ryan imagined. Ryan's eyes lit up and he looked at the great wizard in front of him. "Great Wizard McKen, I, Ryan Clayton, Lord of the Frozen Territory, Baron of the North, invite you to become my worshipper." Ryan suddenly performed a noble etiquette and said solemnly to the great wizard McKen. His suddenness surprised the two people in front of him, and the great wizard was also caught off guard. "You invited me. Do you know that I am a great wizard? Even if I don't have knowledge of war horses, I am still a great wizard. Among the great wizards in the entire empire, the distance from the Holy Land is either in the top 10 or the top 20, of course I know, haha." The great wizard McKen sneered twice and leaned back on the recliner. He was now sure that Ryan in front of him was a little kid with high ambitions. He had seen many nobles who were ambitious but incompetent, so he was naturally not polite to such nobles. But the next moment, Ryan's voice froze Archmage McKen in place. 100,000, I'll give you 100,000 gold coins in exchange for Archmage McKen's 1 month of time in the frozen land. After 1 month, you can choose how to respond to my invitation. Whether you refuse or agree, the 100,000 gold coins will belong to you. 100,000 gold coins in exchange for a month of traveling in the north. McKen hesitated. He was really short of money. Although he was one of the Archmage closest to the Holy Land in the entire empire, without gold coins, even if he was the first to reach the Holy Land, he would never be able to achieve the Holy Land. 100,000 gold coins is not a small amount. Archmage McKen looked at Ryan, and Ryan smiled knowingly. "Don't worry, every gold coin belongs only to me, and has nothing to do with Clayton." Archmage McKen suddenly laughed, as if he had met a fat sheep merchant, and his smile was even a little flattering. "Well, Baron Ryan, since you are willing to pay 100,000 gold coins to invite me to the frozen land for a month, let's make a deal." Archmage McKen stretched out his hand, and a contract scroll appeared directly in front of him. Ryan did not hesitate and branded his badge on it. "It's a big profit." Archmage McKen was ecstatic. The contract was established, and Ryan had no chance to regret it. 100,000 gold coins, just earned so easily. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 156, Cardinal of the Vatican. If it weren't for the royal family and the Highland Mage Corps, Ryan would definitely not invite Archmage McKen, because it's very simple. The cost of recruiting an Archmage is something Ryan can't afford at the moment. The wealth in his hands needs to be used for the development of the territory and the food of the army, not a Archmage. But the story of Archmage McKen let Ryan know that maybe there is a chance. Archmage McKen is short of money, but he rejected the royal family who could give him a lot of money. In other words, he is short of money and needs money, but Archmage McKen does not regard money as the first principle and bottom line. For some reasons Ryan doesn't know, Archmage McKen would rather give up the huge wealth that the royal family can give him. So, some things are more important to Archmage McKen than money. This is what Ryan is betting on. A deal was reached, and when Ryan returns to the north after the God's Grace Festival, he will also bring Archmage McKen with him. As time went by, Ryan took Brand and his men to the most famous places in the imperial capital. Of course, the purpose was not to wander around. He bought a batch of books on knight training skills, as well as stories and legends about craftsmanship. As for technology, he was unable to buy any. Then there were seeds. Many grains and seeds of unique plants, if they could be grown in the frozen land, would not only relieve the food pressure, but also become cash crops and bring in money. Ryan also wanted to reach a long-term deal with some chambers of commerce in terms of food. Unfortunately, the north was too far away, and these chambers of commerce seemed to know something and did not want to go to the North Wind province at all. Is there something wrong? The chambers of commerce that Ryan found were all white gloves under the hands of the great nobles, and only they had the ability to transport large amounts of food to the frozen land. The reactions of these chambers of commerce puzzled Ryan. He wanted to ask Earl Clayton, but thinking of his current status as a noble, he gave up. Moreover, the Dragon Rider did not live in the residence of Earl Clayton in the imperial capital. During this period, it was unknown what important matters he was discussing with other nobles in the palace. However, a few days later, Ryan went to the residence of Earl Clayton. Because the Countess also came to the imperial capital a few days before the Festival of Grace. As a noblewoman of the Empire, Countess Ellie Fleming would certainly not miss such a major event as the beginning of the lordship system. If Ryan's biological mother had not been pregnant, she would have appeared here. Mother, the Festival of Grace was just 3 days away. During this period, the atmosphere of the entire imperial capital and the entire empire was joyous. There were laughter and joy everywhere on the streets, and even the slaves were no longer pale and thin. Ryan, how have you been during this period? I heard that you spent a lot of gold coins in the imperial capital, Ellie said. She didn't know these things at first, but Ryan's brothers and sisters were staring at him closely and told the Countess about it. They were the same. They laughed at Ryan's title of Northern Baron, but envied and jealously looked at Ryan who had become a noble. Thank you for your concern, Mother. Ryan refused the purse that the Countess took out, changed the subject and said, Mother, do you know what my father is discussing in the palace? The Countess raised her head, glanced into the distance, and then said, A cardinal from the Holy See has come to announce the arrival of the Lord system with the Empire. You know, Ryan, the struggle between the Empire and the Holy See has been going on. Before, the proposal of the Lord system was initiated by the Empire, and it was decided together with the Holy See that the Lord system would appear on this year's Grace Festival. In name, this was the will of the Lord of Dawn, but in fact, it was the Empire that wanted more say. The Empire won that struggle, and the Holy See took a step back, so there was a joint decision between theocracy and royal power in the southern land. But this time the Holy See has entered the Empire again, which means that the Empire has to compromise on some things. Your father and the Emperor are trying to find a way. After all, if the people of the Empire see that the cardinals of the Holy See are spreading the Lord system on behalf of the gods, then the power of the Holy See is likely to revive in the Empire. Your grandfather and many nobles in the Empire have participated in the war with the Church. They will never want their efforts to be in vain. Although Ryan has not had direct contact with the Church, according to his understanding of history, he can feel the horror of the Church from the texts. In the era when theocracy ruled the world, nobles also had to bow down. As a nobleman and a baron of the Empire, he certainly would not be willing to let theocracy override him. No, it should be said that it is absolutely not allowed. So, what will the Emperor do? Ryan couldn't help asking. Countess Ellie shook her head and said, I don't know either. The Empire compromised with the arrival of the Church. This is what they agreed to. If they want to regret it now, it may be very troublesome. Even a powerful empire cannot become the enemy of everyone, so anything it does must be justified. If there is no reason for the war, then the Church will catch a handle. Therefore, it is no wonder that the royal family and the nobles are troubled by the appearance of the cardinal. Ryan left the Earl's mansion and just walked out of the most distinguished street in the imperial capital. He saw a long team shuttling through the street, heading towards the palace. Just by looking at the white armor covering the knights' bodies, the sun emblem on their chests, and the golden cloaks behind them, Ryan felt a huge pressure. Even the war horses under the knights were covered with silver white armor. The rustling sound of metal parts colliding came, as if the knight's long sword was scratching the neck and rubbing against the bones, which was cold. The Holy Heavenly Knights are one of the 9 extraordinary legions of the Church. It is said that each of the extraordinary legions of the Church has the ability to destroy a kingdom. The Holy Heavenly Knights may not be the most powerful extraordinary legion of the Church, but it must be the highest-ranking knight in the Church. They represent the will of the Lord of the Dawn and all the beautiful symbols of the Church. They are upright, powerful, protect the weak, never kill indiscriminately, and bring hope. This has created a close connection between this extraordinary legion and the Lord of the Dawn. The Church, which was driven out of the Empire, sent such an extraordinary legion to appear in the Empire. What is on its mind is self-evident. Ryan can imagine that on the way to the imperial capital, this extraordinary legion must have walked very slowly, so slowly that everyone passing by can be bathed in the glory of the Church. Faith is spreading. This is a new round of war between theocracy and royal power. Chapter 157, God's Grace Festival. The Holy Heavenly Knights appeared in the imperial city, and the joyous atmosphere of the entire imperial city froze a little. Compared with the nouveau riche outside, the gentlemen living in the imperial city have good political vision, and they understand what this means. But after the priests of the Holy See used healing to help hundreds of people in need for free, the imperial city cheered again. The preaching of the Holy See is so simple and crude. Over the years, the Empire has been supporting the research and cultivation of life magic, just to cut off the advantages brought by the priests of the Holy See. After so many years, it seems that it is still not as good as the sacred spells mastered by the priests of the Holy See. Ryan looked at the thousands of people on the street rushing towards the Holy See where the Red Cardinal was, and said with emotion, "Will they kill him?" Atria stood beside him, looking at the crowded street curiously, and asked. She has an outstanding political talent. After getting the information Ryan told her in one day, she could only think of this only way. No, the Cardinal will not die, and the Empire will not allow him to die here. Ryan shook his head. He knew the rules of the nobles very well, and the Empire was not a one-man show. In this land of the South, the Empire needed more support, so it would be difficult to use means outside the rules. It would be fine if the Cardinal came quietly, otherwise the legend would kill him directly. Since he came openly, the Empire must ensure that he left intact. When Ryan was guessing what method the Empire would use to deal with the Holy See, the Grace Festival arrived as scheduled. The last day of each year, or the first day of the new year, the Grace Festival is a festival for the gods to give life to the earth, and to thank the gods for their favor. Everyone walked out of their homes and came to the street. As a noble, Ryan was naturally taken to the palace by the royal etiquette lady. Hundreds of nobles appeared in the palace, and Columbus III also walked in front of the public on this day. Columbus III, the master of this huge empire, is a middle-aged man with a somewhat fat body. Although he can't see it clearly, Ryan feels that he should have lost a lot of hair on his head. At this moment, he wears a lush wig and a long robe. He holds the knight's sword at his waist in one hand and the scepter representing the gods in the other hand. The knight's sword, named Norris's Edge, and the scepter, named the Holy Glory Scepter, are two artifacts that are absolutely divine. The former comes from the ancient legendary knights, and the latter comes from the Holy See. When the Empire drove the Holy See out, it snatched the authority of the Pope, the Holy Glory Scepter, into its own hands. Seeing this scepter, Ryan's eyes involuntarily looked in another direction, where the Red Cardinal of the Holy See, Tom Walter, had a look as cold as the frost in the north. The legendary knight, the head of the Holy Kingdom of Heaven Knights, stood behind him, and no one could see the expression under the armor of the other party. The nobles around Ryan did not speak. They were also curious about what the Emperor and the Cardinal would do today. "I hope there will be no war," a noble whispered in a low voice. He was also a baron. He was afraid of the struggle between the Empire and the Church, which represented countless blood and death. One after another, more and more civilians in the imperial capital appeared in the palace. This was their only chance to enter the palace once a year to listen to the Emperor's speech on the Divine Grace Festival. And today, the Empire will announce a shocking news to the world. Columbus III walked to the high platform step by step. His robe was bathed in the golden sunlight. The whole person was like a god, noble and majestic. Today, Columbus's voice spread throughout the palace through some magical means. Even in the imperial capital, most places could hear his voice. Everyone was quiet, and the many nobles around Ryan were even more silent. Let us be grateful for the gift of the gods. Under the glory of the Lord of the Dawn, this world will once again be warm for a year, and it will warm the Norris continent forever in the future. After Columbus II finished saying what he would say every year, the entire imperial capital city was boiling. God's grace, God's grace, countless people were reveling. After several times, Columbus III's voice continued to ring. Today, it is also the 123rd year of the prosperity of the Floor Empire. Under the leadership of the great Columbus, the Empire will always stand at the top of Norris, and we will stand at the forefront to listen to the teachings of the gods. Floor A. In the palace, there were even louder cheers and roars. The endless sound rushed into the sky, tearing apart the sea of clouds in the sky, and letting the sun's glory shine directly on the earth. Ryan guessed that this should be a means of some kind of magic formation. But this scene really made more people in the Empire excited. Floor A. Columbus's voice finally rang for the third time. Today, on the day of divine grace, I, the Emperor of the Empire, the great Columbus, have heard the voice of the gods, the great Lord of the Dawn, the Creator of light, the God of the gods. He has given me the right, the majestic gods. He told me that the world should not be like this. Even the humblest people should have the qualifications to approach the gods. The Empire will always be loyal to the great light, and we will follow the will of the gods, under the guidance of the gods, even if it offends all the kingdoms and noble lords in this world. The Empire will practice the will of the gods. So I decided that from today on, the Empire will establish a new title below the 5th class nobles and above the knights. Columbus I almost roared out. His voice, what he described, made this huge city fall into a deathly silence. As nobles, Ryan and other nobles certainly knew about the emergence of the Lord system a year ago, but as the lower-level civilians and slaves, they knew nothing. To them, knights and nobles were all masters, and there was no difference. Lord. A title below the baron and above the knight will not be stingy to anyone. As long as they are pioneers who are looking to the light and bathing in the morning light, they will become lords and nobles. They are lords, they are pioneers of light, they are the believers closest to the light. After Columbus finished speaking, countless people were excited and fanatical, and their eyes were filled with fearlessness. Become a noble? For many years, ordinary people have not made class transitions. Now ordinary people like them also have the opportunity to become noble masters? Become a noble who is high above? The whole imperial capital was boiling. When they heard the voice of Columbus they were boiling. Even the oldest people were trembling with excitement. In the position of the nobles, Ryan looked surprised. The solution that the Empire came up with was to combine royal power and divine power? The Emperor of the Empire acted on behalf of the power of the Church. Chapter 158, Death of the Cardinal. Ryan had to say that this method was very clever. Combining royal power with divine power, rather than separating them to an extreme, would definitely benefit the Empire in a way that 1 + 1 would be greater than 2. The most important thing is that in this way, the importance and legitimacy of the Church would not be so absolute. The Empire is also a believer of the Lord of the Dawn, and the Church is also a believer of the Lord of the Dawn. I exercise rights on behalf of the gods, and you also exercise rights on behalf of the gods. Under the gaze of countless eyes in the palace, Columbus I personally wrote a lordship system on a sacred scroll. Once written, it will never be changed, and it also means that the lordship system is completely recognized and confirmed. Pairs of eyes looked forward to it until Columbus I finished writing. So Columbus, in the palace, all the civilians stretched their necks and roared with passion. Floor. The artifact scroll named Floor's certificate was very large. Ryan was not far away and could see it clearly. The description of the Lord on it was that he was a noble class and a pioneer of light. The original Lord was just a Lord below the 5th class Baron and Supreme Knight, but now, he has the title of a pioneer of light, which means that they act for the gods. The master of the Empire, Columbus, is the Pope of these pioneers of light. With a sacred scepter in his hand, there is no doubt about the legitimacy of Columbus I. The power of the Church was taken away just like that. Umberto, Columbus I's voice rang out, and then a tall knight came out from the crowd who were looking forward to it below, and knelt on one knee below Columbus. My noble king, what do you want? Columbus I looked at Umberto, and his voice resounded throughout the palace. Umberto, a soldier of the Northern Frontier Corps of the Empire, in the winter of the invasion of the Orcs and the 122nd year of the imperial calendar, in the north, he killed a tribe of Orcs alone and opened up dozens of miles of territory. Now, in the name of the Empire and Columbus, I will give you that land, and you will also become the first Lord of the Empire and the first bright pioneer of the gods. You will become the master of the Umberto family and the noble of the Empire. Umberto raised his head and looked at Columbus I with fanatical eyes, then shouted loudly, "Follow your will and the gift of the gods." Columbus smiled and nodded, then called out a few names again, including knights, civilians, and even a slave. As the master of the empire, I will free you from your slavery and reward you with the land you have obtained for the empire. You will become a lord of the empire and a bright pioneer." When the slave became a noble in an instant, everyone in the palace who was looking forward to hearing their names was shocked and unbelievable. After Columbus finished rewarding, he continued to speak. "As long as you are open-minded and open up for the empire and the gods, even slaves can become nobles." Looking at the cheering and howling people behind Columbus, there was no sound from the seats where many nobles were sitting. They were not shocked by Columbus' actions. As political nobles, they knew very well what the other party was doing. It was nothing more than the person who spoke up was the emperor of the empire. Even a few months ago, these nobles did the same in their own territories, but it was not spread all over the world like today. These are the basic qualities of nobles. What Columbus is doing now cannot make these nobles lose their composure. Moreover, their role here is just to make this matter more authentic. The Lord of the Empire will be recognized by the world. Whether in the empire or outside the empire, the Lord is always a noble. Columbus was still roaring, stirring up a storm of faith like a real pope. Then, he began to invite the observation groups of various countries to come forward one by one and imprint the tokens of the kings behind them on the scroll. Each mark represented their recognition of the noble status of the imperial lord in their territory. This scene also made those who watched it more convinced. Until the end, all the kingdoms, duchies, and even earls had gone through the formalities. Thousands of eyes fell on the Cardinal of the Holy See. The old archbishop finally opened his eyes. While waiting for Columbus' call, he also whispered to the legion commander beside him. "Damon, we are lucky." Tom Walter, one of the 9 cardinals of the Holy See, second only to the Pope, had a terrifyingly calm voice, like the cold wind blowing through the window cracks in the cold winter. "We witness the birth of heresy today. I will witness the glory of the dawn. When the dawn rises, no one can stand in front of the church, and I will also be bathed in the glory of the Lord. Damon, I believe you will eliminate all heresy from my lord." After the cardinal finished speaking, he stood up and greeted Columbus with a disgusting smile. He had no expression, but just walked towards the other party step by step. At this moment, all the nobles in the palace became nervous, and the legends in the dark also stared at this picture closely. The cardinal of the church, wearing a bright red robe, and the emperor of the lion robe, wearing a golden robe, were approaching little by little. The nobles were not nervous about the confirmation of the Lord system before, but now they were extremely worried that the cardinal would do something scary. The cardinal approached Columbus little by little until he was shoulder to shoulder with him. "Tang, my friend Columbus." Had just opened his mouth when he saw the originally ruddy face of the cardinal beside him suddenly turn pale, and then the whole person was shaky. In just a breath of time, the cardinal fell from the high platform next to the emperor of the empire like a kite with a broken string. Bang! The clear sound made the palace so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. Everyone stared at the fallen cardinal in a daze. Only 5 or 6 meters below the high platform, blood was all over the cardinal's body and spread to the feet of the civilians. I don't know who shouted first, and then the whole palace became extremely chaotic. In the distance, soldiers from far away quickly rushed over, dispersed the civilians, and blocked them 10 meters away. But it was too late. In order to show the popularity of the Columbus royal family, no soldier in the palace was within 50 meters of these civilians today. When they rushed over, everyone could see that the cardinal died in front of them, falling from the high platform. A knight quickly ran up from the side and said something to Columbus with a stiff face. Then the emperor of the empire also looked very ugly. Ryan saw that in front of him. The nobles also became agitated at this moment, but no one stepped forward. They must avoid suspicion, and they must not bring trouble to themselves. It's ridiculous that a cardinal with power comparable to that of a god would fall to death. At the front, Grand Duke Fleming sneered, but then there was endless murderous intent. How cruel, using the death of a cardinal to start a war. Chapter 159 Marriage Choices Before the Storm. One of the only 9 cardinals of the Holy See died in public, next to the Emperor of the Floor Empire. In short, this matter has become a big deal. Over there, the leader of the Holy Heavenly Knights, Damon Reyna, who was standing in place, rushed towards Columbus like crazy. "You, the Floor Empire, actually killed the cardinal of my Holy See." His voice was deafening, resounding through the sky and the earth. Even the people in the imperial capital outside the palace looked at this sight in shock. horrified by the news revealed in this angry and sad voice. This leader of the Knights is very powerful, more terrifying than ordinary legends, but this is the palace, and he can't rush to Columbus after all. The space magic turned into a cage, and vines that even legends couldn't tear apart grew under the ground to seal it tightly, and then iron chains fell and covered Damon's body. In just a moment, the power of this legend was completely sealed. But he was still struggling, and the front was broken. The hideous and angry face stared at Columbus. In the imperial capital, only 1,000 holy heavenly knights, 1/10 of the total number, rushed out of the abandoned church where they were, and fearlessly killed towards the palace, alarming countless people. But soon, several legends took action, and the 1,000 holy heavenly knights were also suppressed. No one dared to kill them. Humph! What a great church! It actually used the death of a cardinal to frame the Floor Empire. The voice of Columbus also penetrated inside and outside the palace. This emperor was also forcibly piled up with resources and divinity. The rank of legend. Ryan felt that although this was the fact, Columbus III's explanation seemed a little pale and powerless. Why? Because there is never a lack of smart conspirators in the world. They will not believe that the cardinal died by himself. They have many ways to prove that the death of the cardinal is inseparable from the empire. At that time, they would gather in groups of 3 or 5, drink some wine, and start a discussion with different opinions. No matter what the final result of the discussion is, it will be disadvantageous to the empire. Because the cardinal is dead, but the emperor of the empire is still alive. It's that simple. No one thinks that the cardinal's life can be compared with Columbus III. If there is a comparison, it should be the Pope himself, but in this case, who would not put aside the facts? The cardinal's status and position are enough to start a war. This is why when the other party fell from the high platform before, no one in the circle of nobles moved, because no matter who of them moved and approached that side, I am afraid that in the end it would become that noble who took action against a cardinal. In order to ensure the stability of the empire and the majesty of the Columbus royal family, as long as there is a choice, the royal family must not be humiliated. But which of the nobles present is willing to be a scapegoat? Do you really think that there is only a contradiction between the empire and the church in the world? So, Columbus III stood there alone, and he was watched by everyone. As proud as he was before, the emperor of the empire was now in a gloomy mood. The entire Holy Heavenly Knights, including Captain Damon, were imprisoned in the empire's prison. Then the empire issued a statement that the cardinal died in the palace. And no one attacked him. The cause of death was that he activated a certain artifact that wanted to kill the emperor of the Floor Empire, but it backfired and his vitality was exhausted. But just as Ryan thought, it was useless. There were many people who believed it, but the farther away from the imperial capital, the fewer people would believe this half-true and half-false statement. They only wanted to believe what they wanted to see in their hearts, that is, the cardinal died in the hands of the empire. That evening, in the east of the empire, a terrible extraordinary army appeared in the empire and rushed directly to the direction of the imperial capital province. The Feather Dragon Legion, an extraordinary army formed by cultivating a subspecies of dragons in the church. They look similar to dragons, but they are covered with snow-like feathers. The 8,000 Yulong Legion flew for less than 3 hours, crossing many provinces of the empire and appearing at the foot of the imperial capital. Their speed was so fast that people wondered whether the Holy See had already prepared such an extraordinary legion to be stationed in the Andorra Kingdom, waiting for this day to arrive at the imperial capital at the fastest speed. The Floor Empire did not stop them. This extraordinary legion only took away the body of the cardinal, Tang Walter. At the same time, the 1,000 Holy Heavenly Knights led by Damon were also released and left the empire on their own and returned to the Holy Mountain of the Holy See. During the whole process, both sides performed very smoothly, but everyone understood that this was the calm before the storm. Why is that legion going north? Ryan was puzzled. The Holy Mountain of the Holy See was still in the southwest of the southern land, but now the Holy Heavenly Knights led by Damon were heading north. Maybe they are going to act with a Yulong Legion, Ryan guessed so. The Festival of Grace ended so hastily. Before Ryan could wait for the response of the Holy See to this matter, the Countess found him first. Ryan, your mother asked me to help you arrange some noble women. After a few days of selection, we finally have some suitable candidates left. Countess Ellie waved her hand, and a maid brought over a plate with a few clean papers on it. There were some names written on the papers, as well as their backgrounds and identities. Let's take a look at the first one first. She has the best conditions, Avril Melendez, the daughter of the Viscount family. The Melendez family is a Viscount family in the Calais province. They have a relatively normal relationship with their Clayton family. They are on the edge of the province, close to the Volga province and the blazing snow province, which is the junction of three provinces. With this geographical location, the Melendez family is considered to be in the middle and upper ranks among the Viscounts of the entire empire. Their family has a lot of wealth. If you can marry Avril, the youngest daughter of the Viscount family, your territory will get a very good dowry. It is not too far from the north, and she should be able to adapt to the environment of the frozen land territory. At the same time, she is also a student of the Magic Academy, 2 years younger than you. On the back of the paper, a gentle-looking woman was hand-painted. She frowned slightly, as if gazing at the distant sky. The sunlight above her head fell through the gaps between the leaves and scattered around her, like a butterfly flashing in the light. It conforms to normal aesthetics. The second one is Nishi Hoover. The Hoover family is also a very powerful noble bloodline in the empire. Over a long period of time, the Hoover family has many nobles. The family that Nishi belongs to is a baron family, and she is the eldest daughter of the baron. Her family is in. For 3 hours, Ryan listened to the Countess's endless description of the 12 noble daughters. This marriage is not only related to Ryan and the future changes of the frozen land, but also represents a political marriage between nobles. Ryan believes that before finding him, the Countess must have greeted the noble ladies behind the women on the list. Does the Melendez family have a ship? Ryan asked curiously. Chapter 160 Meeting the Father-in-Law. Ryan certainly knew that this was not a simple marriage. The most critical thing was that, since they were not too ugly, the direction of the decision was the noble territory behind them. What Ryan cared about most was the intersection of the three provinces where the Melendez family was located. There was a big river there. The Melendez used ships to exchange the wealth of the three provinces and even transported it to the most prosperous west coast. Hearing Ryan's words, the Countess also nodded in approval. She also cared more about this family, otherwise she would not have put Avril first. After all, the list sent over was sorted according to the size of the help to Baron Ryan. The source of the Chi River is deep in the mountains of the Chicsa province, but when it flows through the Calais province, it converges into a large river that can sail ships, which happens to be the territory where the Melendez family is located. This is a river that can directly reach the west coast. The wealth of the Melendez family is mostly due to this river. So, Ryan, have you decided? Yes, Ryan nodded, and then asked. Although I agree, will the Melendez family agree? The Countess smiled. Whether she was the daughter of the Grand Duke or the Countess now, her status in the Empire has never been low. Don't worry, Ryan, I will help you talk to Melendez, and Mrs. Melendez has asked me about your situation before, so there will be no problem with this matter. In addition, you still have a few days before you leave, so you can go and see Avril during this time. Thank you, Mother. The Countess, who is not Ryan's biological mother, was very concerned about Ryan's marriage. I don't know if there were any other reasons. Anyway, after the decision of this marriage, the Clayton family had served as the last elder, and Ryan and the Earl of Clayton's family were truly separated. The next day, Ryan received a call from the Countess. Earl Clayton was also present today. He was still serious, but nodded to Ryan, a relatively satisfied air. There are more than a dozen knights in the Melendez family who serve in my legion. As a Viscount family, they have been quite helpful to Clayton in the past, Earl Clayton said, letting Ryan understand the meaning. Today he was going to the Melendez mansion in the imperial capital. According to Earl Clayton, he was basically going to meet the Viscount who came to the imperial capital because of the Lord system and the God's Grace festival. There would not be any extra variables. Klosterman will take you there. Thank you, Father. Ryan performed a noble etiquette, then left and found the Amber Dragon. Mr. Klosterman. Ryan landed on the back of the dragon, and the dragon that was about to enter the legend instantly spread its wings and flew into the sky. Ryan was speechless. He didn't understand why Earl Clayton wanted him to be so high profile. The imperial capital was huge, but it was nothing to the dragon. It could reach a place by spreading its wings, but it had to rush into the clouds and attract the attention of the whole city. Then it landed at the Melendez family mansion, which was not too far from the Clayton family mansion. This dragon is a bit showy. Ryan thought so in his heart, looking at the amber dragon swaggering through the city. This guy seemed to be afraid that others would not see his strong body. The Melendez family mansion could not accommodate such a big dragon. So the dragon simply crawled down the street, blocking everyone's way forward in an instant. "You can stay in there for a while," the Amber Dragon said proudly, and Ryan saw in his peripheral vision that many civilians around him became bold after being frightened, holding the gold coins in their hands and trying to pay tribute to the dragon. The imperial capital is different. Ordinary people can also have surplus gold coins, Ryan said to himself. Under the guidance of the servants of the Melendez family, who had been waiting for a long time, he came to the study room on the top of the mansion, where Viscount Melendez and Viscountess received him. "Baron Ryan of the Frozen Territory, I meet Viscount Melendez." Ryan performed a noble etiquette, and then nodded to the Viscountess next to him and said, "Viscountess, I said that the blood of the Clayton family can't be ugly." Viscount Melendez smiled at Ryan and said to his wife at the same time, "It's just that." Viscountess's expression seemed to be a little hesitant. She wanted to say something, but she didn't say it in front of Ryan. Ryan could probably guess what she wanted to say. Ryan is the Lord of the North. Apart from the chaos and coldness of the North Wind Province, everyone is concerned about the fact that Earl Clayton's merits were equalized by a frozen land territory. As nobles of the Calais province, they are even more concerned. The Melendez family has learned about what the frozen land territory looks like. The marriage is for politics and other reasons, but the Viscountess still can't help but worry about her daughter. Thinking of this, Ryan laughed and said to the two future father-in-law and mother-in-law in front of him, "The frozen land territory has some specialties that may be sold to the west coast. This spring, the Viscount might as well arrange a team to go to the frozen land territory. As long as the people of the Melendez family go to the north, they will naturally know what the frozen land territory looks like." However, in the eyes of Viscount Melendez, this is a cooperation and transaction between Ryan's frozen land territory and his own Viscount territory. To be precise, it is a request for some support from him to the frozen land territory. He did not intend to refuse. After all, he had thought about it before Ryan came. "Don't worry, Ryan. My team will go to the north with you in 2 days." Compared with the Viscountess, Viscount Melendez paid more attention to the nature of the marriage between the two families, especially at this time when the Empire and the Church seemed to be heading for war. The wealth of their Melendez family still needs to rely on the reputation of the Clayton family. After a short greeting, Ryan left the Viscount's mansion. After letting the Dragon Cross take his time to go back, Ryan went to the Magic Academy. The atmosphere among the nobles has changed a lot because of the departure of the Church, so it is not a big deal for Ryan to meet his future fiancée. Obviously, Avril also got the news from the family. When this gentle and tall girl walked side by side with Ryan in the Magic Academy, she seemed a little cramped and not good at speaking, but as Ryan described the stories from the people of Ixnel, the girl gradually relaxed. "When I return to the north, I will arrange for someone to go to the Melendez family," Ryan said this at last. Avril lowered her head and nodded slightly. She certainly understood that this meant that the marriage between the two families was confirmed. At that time, she would have the status of Baron Ryan's fiancée. This was a political marriage between two noble families, but even so, both sides still hoped that the marriage would be satisfactory. At present, the situation seemed good. Chapter 161 Homeward Journey. After saying goodbye to Avril, Ryan visited Archmage McKen again and informed him of his departure time. Finally, he returned to the Clayton family's mansion and told the Countess the result. "Now that it's confirmed, Kirami will be relieved." The Countess smiled at Ryan and said, "Your father will write a letter to Adele, the wizard of the Magic Academy. Avril will practice in the wizard tower of the sanctuary wizard named Peacock until your marriage begins." When she mentioned that name, the Countess couldn't help but glance at Earl Clayton next to her, and her eyes seemed to contain pride. Adele's rainbow magic gave her legendary power when she was in the sanctuary. If your fiancé can learn 1/7 of the rainbow magic, she may become an archmage or a sanctuary in the future. Earl Clayton spoke to Ryan calmly, as if he didn't see the Countess's expression. At the same time, the Melendez family will have the qualification to purchase some potions from the Clayton family mage group. With their wealth, they should be able to train a group of extraordinary knights. Under this deal, Melendez's support for your territory should not be too little. Just tell them directly if you need anything. "Thank you, Father," Ryan saluted and said. Born in the Clayton family, he finally felt the benefits of being in the Southern noble circle. However, this may also be because the Clayton family is expanding and needs some support for the nobles who are descendants of the Clayton family. If the bloodline of the Clayton family can be like the Hoover family in the future, spreading throughout the empire and even the Southern Empire, then the Clayton family will be either a Grand Duke or a Grand Duke. For now, the Clayton family's foundation is not as good as those ancient families. Now that the Earl of Clayton has reached its peak, it will naturally move towards a solid foundation. Ryan can be sure that the father's next plan is to seek a better future for his brothers and sisters, a fiefdom, a title, until the name of the Clayton family spreads all over the world. If it was before, Ryan could not understand the political struggle between the nobles in the south of the empire, and he dared not say whether Earl Clayton's plan would succeed. But now, because of a cardinal in the Vatican, the reputation of Columbus III and the royal family has suffered a huge blow. This is an opportunity. We have to go back quickly. Ryan did not care about the disputes between the Empire and the Vatican. With the arrival of the new year, the development of his territory is the top priority. This year's mission is much more serious than last year. Starting from the imperial capital, Ryan's team was much larger. In addition to 100 soldiers and brand and others, there were 40 more carriages. Viscount Melendez could not understand why Ryan only wanted food. Although food is precious, it is not worth much. However, when Ryan expressed his desire to reach a long-term food transaction with Melendez, he was rejected because the Melendez family did not have a chamber of commerce. If they transported food to the north, they would need to take care of too many places and consume too much. After all, that river leads to the west coast, not to the north. Only those big chambers of commerce have this way. Master Yelena? Are you going with us? When Ryan received the call from Master McKen, he was also a little surprised, because in addition to the master, there were 5 magicians following him. But he was not surprised. Following a master was much easier than practicing hard by himself. Many times, a word of advice from the master could save the magician several years of hard practice. This is what is called a master produces a good student. These magicians obviously recognized the knowledge of Master McKen in magic. But what was a little shabby was that, including Master McKen, these magicians could only gather 3 carriages. Ryan smiled knowingly and said to Master McKen, "You will not be disappointed." He believed that the huge herd of wild horses in Svadiferi could make Master McKen forget all the monetary interests. Ryan personally sent Master McKen to his magic carriage and gave the master enough respect. He was courteous to the wise and humble. No wonder the uncle was able to gather so many talented people in the early stage. Just by relying on this, Ryan couldn't help laughing as he felt the changes in Master McKen's senses of him and the looks of the people around him. He has a long history of being his teacher. Mr. Shockett, your soldiers need my help in preparing food. Ryan looked to the other side, where a middle-aged silver knight was riding on a war horse, with 20 soldiers beside him. These were the people from the Melendez family who were responsible for helping to escort food and go to the frozen land to see the view. In addition to them, there were hundreds of slaves responsible for the 40 carriages. Thank you, Baron Ryan. We have prepared food for half a month. Shockett Melendez is the younger brother of Viscount Melendez. The Viscount family also attaches great importance to the marriage between the 2 nobles, because it means that the Melendez family in the Calais province has completely stepped on the chariot of the Clayton family. They are also betting. For now, they are only betting on the Earl of Clayton's family, and their eyes are not on a baron in the north. It can only be said that when Earl Clayton led 30,000 Flame Dragon Knights to the north to slaughter the Mammoth tribe, there was a rumor that he might become the 5th Grand Duke, which still had a huge impact on the empire, especially the nobles in the Calais province. Calais province? After returning here again, Ryan's team has grown again, mainly because he got 20 wagons of food from the Clayton family again. The Earl and the Earl's wife have not returned yet. Ryan's biological mother, Kirimi, has great power in the Earl's territory. Others can only pretend not to see the 20 wagons of food. Ryan also saw Master Knox, who seemed to be very unwilling to see Brock leave. If his skills can't improve, Master Ryan, remember to bring him to me, the master said resentfully, as if he was afraid that Brock, a craftsman with supreme talent, would fall into the arms of someone else. Ryan waved his hand, meaning that Brock's skills would definitely not stagnate, and he didn't know if the master understood it. Memory stagnation? Do you really think Ryan's horse spirit blessing is vegetarian? When Ryan came to Volga province again, he couldn't help but visit some noble territories when he passed by them. His purpose was self-evident. He wanted to see if he could buy food from these nobles to enter the north. The results were all failures without exception. Chapter 162. 20,000 per year. When in Danube province, Ryan had to visit Lord Pascal. As one of the 4 earls in Danube province, the Count Pascal family is the oldest in this land. And the other party controls an extraordinary army, the Gargoyle Army, which makes Ryan very curious. Maybe they really don't need to eat too much food? Ryan visited the Count as a nobleman who just spent one day in the Divine Grace Festival in the imperial capital. Baron Ryan, the pride of the Clayton family, Count Pascal is a middle-aged man with an almost perfect figure. Why does Ryan know? Because when Ryan met him, he was playing with 10 charming maids in the pool. Every maid was naked, but when Ryan arrived, they stood out of the water without hesitation. Ryan, as a serious person, of course, did not look sideways. But the Earl's indifference still made him a little hot, and his eyes could only fall on the upper body with 6 abdominal muscles. If you like, I can give you 2. These are exquisite maids that I have spent more than 10 years to train. The Earl likes them. How can Ryan take them away? Ryan said so. He really didn't have much interest in those maids. After more than 10 years, I'm afraid that all the places that attract people to explore are the shape of this Earl. Putting on a robe, Count Pascal looked at Ryan and asked, "Tell me why you are here. You want to bring the team back to the north. This is not a problem. As a noble, I should open the door for you." That's not the case. Ryan looked at the Earl, who seemed to be easier to talk to than he thought. I want to ask the Earl whether the food of Danube province can be traded with a frozen territory for a long time. There is only a wind canyon between Danube province and North Wind province. The power of this Earl should be able to send the food out safely, right? Send the food to the north? You should find a chamber of commerce. My family also has a chamber of commerce, and we will continue to go to North Wind City next year. Pascal didn't know why Ryan found him just to talk about this. Ryan shook his head and said, "What I want is a direct transaction between the Pascal family and my frozen land territory." Oh, Count Pascal looked at Ryan, and this time he was really a little confused. "What I hope is 1,000,000 kilograms of food transaction every quarter." Ryan's words made the Earl's eyes widen. "Does your territory need so much food?" "Normally, a person consumes about 1 kilogram of food a day. After all, slaves and those mudlegs, just to survive. Even in wealthy provinces, civilians consume only about 1 kilogram of food a day. 1,000,000 kilograms is enough to support 10,000 people for 100 days. If you save a little, it is not a problem to survive for 3 months or 1 quarter. And this is 10,000 gold coins. It is very cheap to grow food yourself, but it is always sold at a high price. 1 quarter, 10,000 gold coins. I will pay it to the Earl on time." Ryan took out the money method. This year's exchange quota is 40,000 gold coins, which is not a small amount for a Count's family. "Do you really have so much money?" Count Pascal admitted that Ryan changed his perception of the title of Baron. Taking out 40,000 gold coins a year to buy food, is this the wealth that a Baron can have? At this moment, Pascal couldn't help but send an army to Ryan's territory to see what was going on. But he knew very well that his current situation was a bit sensitive. The conflict between the Church and the Empire had escalated again. As a former supporter of the Church, he had to reduce his presence. But 40,000 gold coins half, 500,000 kilograms of food every quarter, I can only trade so much. Danube province is not a big grain province, then make a deal. Ryan can only say that he accepts all food. The first batch of food will be delivered to your territory in a month. Pascal really wanted to know what was going on in Ryan's territory, but considering his current situation, he gave up. "I believe the Earl will not break his promise." Ryan left 10,000 gold coins directly, and the Earl was surprised by his wealth. Ryan, who finally reached a deal, continued to head north with his team. "These things come from the family of my fiancée Avril Melendez. Do you want to keep some of them too?" Ryan looked at the soldiers of the Winged Canyon in front of him with a cold tone. Riding on the back of Winter, he couldn't help but have a bit more murderous aura. Hearing his words, the leading soldier in front of him was also stunned for a moment, and then smiled. "Baron Ryan, please forgive me. I am ignorant. On behalf of the Viscount Wald family of the Blazing Snow Province, I congratulate you and the lady of the Melendez family on your eternal marriage." The Lord named Tissot smiled and even handed over a bag of gold coins. As a noble, he certainly understood that this was a marriage, and the expression of mutual support represented the face of the two noble families. If he had known that the young man riding on the back of a coveted horse was a noble, he would not have stopped it. At this point, he couldn't help but look at the more gorgeous and noble carriage behind him with some doubts. It was strange. The prohibition of the Wing Canyon showed that there should be a magician sitting inside. How could the nobles ride horses and the magicians sit in the best carriages? But Lord Tissaw could only smile and send Ryan's team out of the Wing Canyon. Baron Ryan, please forgive me. It's really martial law these days. The Holy Heavenly Knights of the Holy See left here not long ago. It seems that they went to the Andorra Kingdom. The order of the Empire is to investigate strictly. I'm back. The moment he walked out of the Wing Canyon, Ryan had goosebumps on his body due to the unique cold winter in the north, but this coldness made him feel very warm. Logically speaking, if he hadn't become an adult at the age of 16, as a baron in the north, he might never leave the Northwind province and go to the land in the south in his life. This time he went to the south, and I'm afraid I don't know when I will go there next time. The 1,000-man extraordinary army of the Holy See left from the Wing Canyon. Ryan was a little surprised, but he didn't care much. Even if a war broke out, the Holy See would never dare to attack the Empire from the north. They could only force the Empire from the south to the north. Sure enough, in the first hour after Ryan returned to the north, the Pope's angry roar resounded up and down the holy mountain of the southern Holy See, and a sharp blade was looming in the golden morning light. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 163, The War of Faith. This is blasphemy against the gods. This is a war without hesitation. The Empire actually dared to blatantly violate the agreement of witnessing the glory of the dawn and took the initiative to start a war. They even dared to kill my lord's loyal servant, a distinguished cardinal. They are blaspheming the gods. They are declaring war on the dawn of the entire world. The Holy See respects the changes in the world and recognizes lords below the fifth-class nobles and above the knights, but the will of the gods is warning that the so-called pioneers of light in the Empire are absolute heretics. Heretics, this is a war recognized by the gods. This is a war between the faith of the dawn and heresy, and our great Lord of the Dawn will win, and the Holy See will take back the glory that belongs to the apostles of the gods. The Son of God has been born. This is the will of the gods. He supports our war. In the kingdom of the dawn, the archangel has awakened. He will come and bring the glory of the Lord of the Dawn to punish the heretics within the empire. Columbus I has been blinded by heresy. It's amazing that the lords of any country in the Holy See, the nobles, seem to be unaware that the lords of the empire are the so-called pioneers of light. Perhaps they know, but the believers don't know. In the roar of the Pope, they really believe that the heretics who oppose the gods have really been born on the northern land of the empire that is not illuminated by the light of the morning sun. We need to regain the faith on that land. The ancient crusaders' flags will no longer be covered in dust, and they will atone for their crimes. On the holy mountain, the Holy See openly launched a war with the empire, and the whole world was shocked. They didn't understand why the Holy See was so extreme. They have to do this. Ryan, who was walking in Yinchuan County, said so. His eyes were deep. The Dawn Church, the Lord of Dawn they serve, that God, hasn't shown any miracles for more than 100 years. The majesty of the church has suffered an unimaginable blow in the past 100 years. Without the appearance of the gods, the church is not so absolute. The war between the empire and the church is a representative example. Without the huge nourishment of the empire, the church has been on a downward spiral over the years. Even in addition to the empire, those kingdoms and duchies have voices against the church, wanting to expel the church from their territories. Those clergymen don't know how many gold coins they get every year in the name of the gods. They must use war and victory to make the people of this world believe in the greatness of the dawn again. Holy Son? Archangel, Ryan smiled. But this matter should not have much to do with him. When he returned to the north, what he needed to face most was the severe winter in the north. Last year's blizzard has not completely disappeared until now. Many people in the north must have been frozen to death or starved to death. It seems like there is a war going on here. As they went deeper into Yinchuan County, Shawkett looked around with a serious look. The slaves' eyes seemed to be glowing as they stared at their food delivery team. War, indeed, it's a new year, and the unfinished war will continue this year. Ryan's eyes contained coldness. This was also his war. As expected, Viscount Hogg appeared in front of Ryan again. This was Yinchuan County. Viscount Hog didn't say that he controlled all the land here, but at least half of it was not lacking, and the main road would inevitably pass through the territory of this Viscount. Ryan, you are finally back. Viscount Hog looked at Ryan with a serious look. In this winter, he had completely regarded Ryan as his lifelong enemy. Viscount Hog, your choice may not be right. Ryan looked at the Viscount calmly. The right and wrong he talked about was certainly not that Viscount Hog had surrendered to Count Weiss. After all, Viscount Hog also wanted his family to have an extraordinary army. The right and wrong he talked about was the victory or defeat of the war. The result will prove whether we are right or wrong. After Viscount Hog left a sentence, he led hundreds of majestic cavalry troops away. Beside him, Shawkett looked at Ryan in surprise, and even the several mages in the carriage could not help but look sideways. Ryan was very humble in the imperial city, and even in the nobles he met along the way, more like a baron, but after arriving in the north, he seemed to have changed into a different person. And just now, did he provoke a Viscount noble? Viscount Hog, the bloodline of this Viscount's family 100 years ago should be traced back to the William royal family, which was the bloodline of a huge empire before the Pan-Plain War of the Gods. The Hog family is a descendant of the ancient William family. However, in the empire, the Viscount Hog family is not close to other nobles, or even to the Earl William family. After all, they are too far apart. Apart from the family tree, there is only interest, but since it is in the Northwind province, I am afraid there is not much relationship in terms of interests, Shawkett said casually, but he did not care about Viscount Hog's relationship in the noble circle. Nobles, as long as everyone takes out the family tree and flips through it, more or less, they can be said to be relatives of each other. If everyone has it, it means that no one has it. Looking at the actions of Yinchuan County, Ryan's original idea of taking the main road back to Lingdu County changed to detour from Tishan County. Shawkett was wrong about one thing. Ryan was not just facing a Viscount noble, but a huge circle of nobles. Walking on the only road, crossing mountains and ridges still made Shawkett and the great wizard McKen and others feel uncomfortable. The speed inevitably slowed down. It was not until a few days later that they arrived at Viscount Walter's territory. The vast plains have been planted with the wheat seeds again. Winter has not passed yet, and the sky is still snowing, but this is the environment in the north. Even if there is only a slight possibility, the food must be planted. Baron Ryan, you are finally back. The moment he saw Ryan, Viscount Walter's heart settled down. You don't know that Yinchuan County started mobilizing for war before the God's Grace Festival last year. Viscount Hog did this, so we in Tishan County had to do the same. But in this case, our food reserves have almost been consumed, but you also know that there will be fewer chambers of commerce coming to Bifang province this year, and we may not be able to buy so much food. Viscount Walter looked grim. He never thought that the war would fall into a state of failure in advance because of food. What did Earl Winter say? Ryan asked. For this question, the person that Tishan County should look for the most is Earl Winter. The Earl said that there is no way to transport food across Liayan County. We can only find a way to transport food through Longshan County, then enter Lingdu County, and then enter Tishan County. But in this case, the consumption on the road is an astronomical figure, and there is no guarantee that it will not be destroyed in the middle of the journey. You don't know that Viscount Hog's cavalry has already started to move in Liayan County. Their speed is much faster than that of the Dragon Blood warriors under Earl Soren. Chapter 164 New Year, New Difficulties. Is this your territory? After climbing over mountains and trekking long distances, and seeing the world around him becoming increasingly desolate and uninhabited, the great wizard McKen, who had endured all the way, finally stood on the cliff and looked at the frozen land in front of him in shock. The flying snow in the sky covered the entire earth with silver, but in the middle of this whiteness, there was a boiling colorful world. Looking down from where they were, the entire frozen land was scattered and orderly, with exquisite stone houses near the foot of the Rhinoceros Horn Mountain. Each stone house was like a fortress manor, with streets crisscrossed and not at all messy, and each street was very wide. They could see the pedestrians walking on it clearly from hundreds of meters away. Even the wooden houses had 2 floors, and each area had 1 or 2 tall buildings, attracting dozens or hundreds of people to approach. At the same time, looking down from a high vantage point, the entire town, no, it was a city without walls, and it was scary big. It was like a paradise, far away from the various noble territories of the North Wind Province, but it developed very well on its own. At this moment, Master McKen and Shockett and others finally understood why Orion went to the south for nothing but food. With so many people, it would be very troublesome if there was not enough food. This is the frozen territory, Master McKen. I said you won't be disappointed. After saying that, Ryan looked at Shockett. Mr. Shockett, I think the Melendez family won't be disappointed either. Shockett was stunned. Yes, with such a territory, how could he be disappointed even in the north? The territory here is no worse than the territory of the Viscount nobles. He remembered that Ryan Clayton had been in the north for less than 2 years, right? At this moment, he was not thinking about the frozen territory, but the Viscount Melendez family. Avril was just the youngest daughter of the Viscount. Strictly speaking, if Ryan had such a territory and strength, it would be no problem for him to marry the eldest daughter of a Viscount, or even the daughter of an Earl. No, it should be said that Ryan, who had such a territory, could avoid many remarks about being well matched. Ryan looked at Shockett's expression and seemed to have noticed something. He waved his hand and said, although I have only been with Miss Avril for half a day, Miss Avril's virtue has deeply attracted me. What a joke. The frozen land has many secrets. Ryan really doesn't want to marry an ancestor. What if the nobles behind the other party take a fancy to the North Territory he has developed? As a relative, if Ryan directly refuses, he will lose a lot of reputation in the noble circle. Avril is very good. Her family background is Viscount Melendez, a noble of Calais province. At the same time, her identity is not that important. In the future, she can wholeheartedly assist his frozen land development. I'm sorry, Baron Ryan, I will ask the Viscount to compensate you for this matter after I go back. Shockett obviously still felt that Ryan suffered a loss in this marriage. If the two families marry, one party suffers, which is not a good thing for both parties. Melendez must make up for it. Soon, Ryan appeared at the foot of Rhinohorn Mountain. Master Ryan, you're back. The Viscountess came to Ryan respectfully, and her tight cheongsam-like dress made her body look rounder. Shockett looked at the Viscountess in surprise. Are you a noble? Nobles are different from ordinary people, because the language, temperament, tone, and even the subtle movements and behaviors they have cultivated since childhood are very different from those of ordinary people. As a member of the Melendez family and the Viscount's younger brother, Shockett could certainly see that the Viscountess had a temperament that was completely different from others. The Viscountess raised her head, looked at the stranger in front of her, then looked at Ryan, lowered her head and shook it. I am Master Ryan's lady-in-waiting, she thought with a blush in her heart. Only in certain places and times can I be a noble. In the Baron's castle, Ryan called the butler Beard who was still outside. Mr. Shockett will take a rest in the frozen land for 2 days. When the time comes, you will take some frozen land specialties and represent me and Mr. Shockett to the Melendez family. Beard had known what was going on the way here, and agreed with some excitement. I will never let your in-laws look down on the master's status. After that, he couldn't help but put aside his identity as a butler and said, if my father knew that you are finally getting married, he will be very happy. That old guy. Ryan's eyes showed a trace of reminiscence. This winter, even if he returned to the warm south of Calais province, the old butler still couldn't make it. In the future, you will really grow up. Ryan patted Beard's shoulder and said. The young man, who was only a little older than Ryan, also lowered his head with red eyes. In the future, I will be the master's butler, but I heard that you have already hooked up with the daughter of a lord, Ryan joked. Ryan didn't have much leisure time in the afternoon when he returned to the territory. This winter is not over yet, and the blizzard is still going on. If this continues, even if we use greenhouses to keep our farmland warm, it will damage a lot of land. Ryan had a headache after getting this answer. He found Yerlina, who was a wizard and a genius after all. Master Yerlina, can your magic keep the land fertile, or let me put it another way? Can your research or magic change the activity of the land, or cultivate a new seed that can withstand the cold? I believe you can do it. Ryan took out a large amount of magic crystals and placed them in front of Master Yerlina, causing the genius wizard to open her eyes wide. I'll try. Yerlina swallowed her saliva. She saw such a large amount of wealth when she came to the frozen land. Who could resist it? At most half a month. The frozen land will also be reclaimed and cultivated. Can it be completed in this time? Ryan asked hopefully, which undoubtedly made Yerlina roll her eyes. Baron Ryan, do you really think that I don't need time to be promoted to legend? Half a month is definitely not enough. If things don't go well, it will be difficult to complete in 1 or 2 years. 1 or 2 years, Ryan turned away with a stiff face. Bang! That night, Ryan's slap collided with the naked skin of a certain female official with great force, and a blood-red mark was immediately revealed. It actually takes so long, 1 or 2 years. Even if we can reclaim terraced wasteland, do we still need to buy food from outside? With a bang, Ryan looked at the cracked bed in silence. It's only the first day I came back, he admitted that he used a little too much strength. Forget it, let's change it tomorrow. As he said that, he moved the delicate body under him directly to the carpet. Chapter 165 The Madness of the Archmage. After 3 days, Shocket, who thought he had seen the frozen land thoroughly, left the frozen land with a shock that was difficult to calm down. He was accompanied by Beard and 100 knights and attendants. If there's any advantage of the north in the eyes of the southerners, it should be the simple folk customs. Of course, it is not necessarily an advantage. Anyway, after Shocket left, there were no outsiders in the frozen land. Ryan finally found the great wizard McKen, who had been doing nothing for 2 or 3 days. Your territory needs the magic achievements of Yelena and others. They may really help you improve the land in the north. The great wizard McKen looked at Ryan. He did not see his usefulness here. He began to suspect that Ryan came here just for Yelena and others. Grand Mage, your importance is better than thousands of troops. Ryan took the hand of the great wizard McKen and looked at the great wizard with fiery eyes, making the great wizard McKen feel very uncomfortable. You should save this expression for your lady-in-waiting. Archmage McKen got goosebumps all over his body, and what he said made Ryan a little embarrassed. The Archmage looked at Ryan with amusement. Your castle doesn't have any magic secret patterns, and don't forget that I am a great mage who specializes in life magic. After coming to his senses, Ryan's face became thicker as he communicated with the Viscountess and the maids. He looked at the Archmage seriously. Archmage McKen, I think you must need to prove yourself, right? Archmage McKen frowned and stared at Ryan, his tone a little unfriendly. What do you mean? What I mean is that I never thought that my 100,000 gold coins would go down the drain. After saying that, Ryan raised his hand and pointed in the void, and a 3-meter-long plain gate appeared between the two. Brand, Ryan yelled, and outside, Brand had already walked in with several soldiers. Lord, at Ryan's signal, Brand and his companions walked into the plain gate. Then Ryan looked at Archmage McKen, who was staring at all this, forgetting to breathe through his mouth and nose. Don't you want to see what the frozen territory wants to see most? Ryan pulled Archmage McKen, whose body was stiff, into the plain gate. In Swatifer, even in the cold winter, the wilderness of this world still did not suffer much wind and frost. The towering God-given mountains at the end of the field of vision blocked all the cold winds from the north. Boom! Almost at the moment of appearance, they saw thousands of wild horses running on the wilderness in the distance. Their galloping brought vitality to the world and also brought the wild and primitive fragrance of green grass in the wilderness. Archmage McKen was trembling all over. He stared at the horses running wildly in the distance, his teeth trembling, and then he knelt down on his knees. With his hands covering his face, his eyes looked at the outside world through his fingers, as if he was using some extreme method to verify that this was not an illusion, but a real world. Teacher, I finally have a chance to fulfill your wish, Master McKen whispered in a low voice, and then he collapsed on the ground and cried loudly. Ah-ha-ha-ha-ha-ha-ha! Looking at Master McKen, who started to howl at the sky after crying, Ryan glanced at Brand, who walked towards the Master. They were all worried that the Master would go crazy in his excitement. Don't touch me! Master McKen yelled, kneeling on the ground holding the land and the wilderness, looking at everything in this world with fanatical eyes. Especially those horses, as if they were gold coins as big as their bodies, so dazzling and brilliant. Ahem, Ryan coughed. Master McKen, I think you need to calm down, otherwise it will be difficult to fulfill your dream. How is that possible? Even if I die, I will finish everything I want to do before I die. Otherwise, even the gods cannot take my life away. Master McKen's eyes were crazy, but his tone was extremely calm. He turned his head and looked at Ryan. Baron Ryan, we should discuss some less important matters. Before, I never thought that I would stay here, but now, I will never leave. Then the key now is the Mage Tower. The Mage Tower is the source of everything for a great mage, and the Mage Tower of the Magic Academy was built with funding from the Empire. Even I can't move it here. Moreover, those Mage Towers don't use floating stones, so it's impossible to move them here. So, you need to build a new Mage Tower for me. Of course, this is not the most urgent. The gold coins required for a mage tower are approximately between 600,000 and 1 million. Depending on the attribute magic that the magician is good at, the price changes and jumps, and it is not impossible to exceed 1 million gold coins. This can be done slowly. You don't have to give me the 100,000 gold coins. Just use it to build the mage tower. In addition, there are magic vessels and the layout of magic circles. Without the mage tower, these things are indispensable, and I can't refine them. Your craftsman can complete some of them, but for sophisticated instruments, you need to buy some professionals. Although I don't want to admit it, those alchemists do have unimaginable talents in this area. Then there are magic crystals. You need a lot of magic crystals, or rather, I also need a lot of magic crystals to ensure the stability of those warhorse potions, to sublimate ordinary horses into magical life forms, or even to be more extreme, to train warhorses to the point of matching magical beasts. This requires the stability brought by magic crystals, otherwise even if all the horses here die, you won't be able to make a warhorse. You also need magical beasts, preferably living ones. The magic factors and blood strength in them can help the warhorses evolve faster. This requires you to arrange soldiers to capture them. I don't think the North is short of these things, but I'm afraid they are all very powerful. Finally, groom, I am the best groom, but I need you to choose a trustworthy candidate, or even someone who is absolutely loyal to you, even at the cost of using divine prohibitions to restrict their speech. Only in this way can the trained warhorses not be targeted. They will be knights and magic apprentices. I will personally teach them meditation and related magical methods, as well as how to tame, train, and take care of the condition and growth of warhorses. Archmage McKen stared at Ryan closely. Of all the things I said, the mage tower has the lowest priority, and the groom's training has the highest priority. If you can do all that I said, then I can guarantee that you, Ryan Clayton, the Baron of the Northern Frozen Territory, will have the only legion in the world that can run wildly in the northern winter. Do you know why the royal family has always wanted to invite me? Because the current leader of the Highland Mage Corps and I were both apprentices of the legendary Archmage with the title of Blood God, the founder of the Highland Mage Corps, but later, my ideas conflicted with his. He was recruited by the royal family and became the pinnacle of the holy domain under the royal family's resources. While I have been rejecting the royal family because of him, I stayed in the Magic Academy with my teacher's notes, wanting to prove that my teacher and I were right at the beginning. Of course, don't worry, no one knows about this, not even my senior brother. Hearing the words of Archmage McKen, Ryan couldn't help but breathe heavily. Sent. According to Archmage McKen, this extraordinary method of breeding warhorses does not only come from an archmage, but also from a legend. It can even be said that the other party is the founder of the world who distinguishes ordinary horses from warhorses. I believe in the achievements of you and your master, the noble title of legend, and I, Ryan, will spare no effort to support all your actions. Ryan put his hand on his chest. This was not a noble etiquette, but a knight's etiquette. Chapter 166 Huge Debt. Then you already owe 500,000 gold coins. Looking at Ryan's appearance, the words of Archmage McKen made the Baron's eyes widen. Ah, Archmage McKen said unhappily, you don't think that the Magic Academy supports the training of magicians without asking for anything in return? A great mage like me, when I was funded to the Mage Tower, I already owed 500,000 gold coins. Usually, it will be repaid in 20 to 30 years after becoming a great mage. If you want to repay in advance, you can. But every great mage is an abyss that devours gold coins. Usually, they will not use the gold coins they earn to repay the debt first, but to improve themselves. Even more than half of the dozens of towers in the Magic Academy have not paid back a single gold coin. As long as they stay in the Magic Academy, they can ignore this debt. My situation is still good. If a magician who has been in the Magic Academy since childhood and has relied on the Magic Academy since the junior magic apprentice, after training to the great mage, the money owed will be more. Ryan looked blank. So, Irina and the others, yes, you can ask them. They are not from noble families. I left this time because I went to the north to observe the life trajectory of magic beasts. If you want to recruit them to stay here in a month, you will be responsible for their debts and the debts of the Magic Academy, except Irina who is a wizard. The remaining 4 are magicians and great magicians. The gold coins they owe should be between 100,000 and 200,000. Ryan was speechless. So, in a short period of time, he had a debt of 600,000 or 700,000? He didn't believe that Irina and the others would leave after Master McKen stayed, and there was no such option. Ryan would not let these disciples from the Magic Academy go. Although they were nothing in front of Master McKen, any of these 5 magicians could become guests of honor of the nobles if they were taken out to walk around the empire. In Ryan's opinion, Viscount Hug's offering was not as good as these few. But if you think about it this way, didn't Master Luna make hundreds of thousands of dollars in my territory for nothing? Thinking of this, Ryan didn't feel much about the huge debt. By the way, when do you need to pay off this debt? Ryan's words made Master McKen's eyes widen. Do you really have so much money? But then he thought about it again. Ryan had wealth from another world, so it didn't seem so difficult to understand. He was just a baron. 3 years, from the time we left the Magic Academy and signed the contract with you, the baron, to pay off all the arrears in 3 years. Normally, a noble pays more than this, because they recruit magicians, not slaves, and need to support magicians with a large amount of money every year, as well as pay magicians a large amount of remuneration. This is the expenditure required for nobles to recruit magicians. It is also because of this that many nobles are unwilling to recruit powerful magicians, which is much more than the arrears. In order to maintain the reputation and dignity of the nobles, it is impossible to say that they will not pay when they have no money. Regardless of what the magicians think, they will be labeled with many bad labels in the noble circle. Therefore, many times, nobles are more keen to train their own family's magicians and recruit low-level magicians who don't spend much money. Especially those apprentices who have not experienced the Magic Academy. Master McKen looked at the wild world in front of him. Obviously, he didn't need that salary. This world was the best reward for him. Magic is a gold-eating cave. At this moment, Ryan finally felt what the most powerful extraordinary path is, and it is also equipped with the most powerful abyss of money. This is just the Archmage. If you want to go to the Sanctuary or Legend, you will have to spend more money. Moreover, there is a saying in the Magic Path that Legend is just another beginning. Think about it. Forget it, this is not a problem. The worst thing is to fight a few wars. Ryan, is an undefeated legend in the north. The main reason is that he can't afford to lose. Just a few mages have made him bear a huge debt. In addition to the allocation of other aspects, every gold coin has to be split into 2 halves. If 1 or 2 wars cannot be guaranteed, then we can only fight a few more. Ryan's eyes looked at the center of the storm in the North Wind Province. If he could accept the offerings of the entire North Wind Province, lunchtime is here. Archmage McKen, let's go back first. Ryan looked at Archmage McKen, who was like a nail and was unwilling to leave. I'm going to take you to see a friend. Mage Luna is really good at hiding. For so many days, Mage McKen could sense the life fluctuations of Ryan and the Viscountess across more than a dozen rooms, but he couldn't sense the breath of Mage Luna at all. When a great mage stood in front of her, Mage Luna shrank into the corner with some social anxiety. She looked at Mage McKen with her copper bale gem eyes. The old man seemed very stupid. Is this the magic of life and soul? Not only that, there are also puppets and earth magic, Mage Luna said dissatisfiedly. Why is this old man staring at her? Ryan certainly didn't just simply let the 2 most powerful extraordinary people in the territory meet. More importantly, you can see that both of you need a mage tower. Even if I have the ability at that time, I can only complete the construction of one of the mage towers first. Although Ryan said this, his eyes were looking at Mage McKen. Without a mage tower, you are still a great mage, and you can still complete the breeding and research of war horses. But without the mage tower, the Luna Mage who could not complete the soul magic sequence could only spend lavishly, and could not even help Ryan make those magical potions. Finish hers first, Archmage McKen still said incomprehensibly. He could not help but look at the Luna Mage many times. It was not that he had not seen the golem puppet before. Many archmages like this kind of stupid big guy to act as the gatekeeper of the mage tower. It was more useful than Warcraft. It did not need to eat and would not get angry. But he did not understand this situation. He was also a little curious about what would happen when the Luna Mage became an archmage. After this matter was settled, Ryan breathed a sigh of relief. It was really not easy to raise 2 super units. Even if it were not for various reasons, his current wealth would not be able to support these 2. We have to make the territory generate wealth quickly, but the essence of economic development is circulation. In addition, the wealth of war can solve the urgent problem. Chapter 167 Economic Development of the Frozen Territory. The south of the Floor Empire, to be precise, is the Thousand Lakes province located in the southwest of the empire by the sea. This is the southernmost part of the empire. Going further south, you will encounter alien sea monsters living in the shallow sea, the land of the Kingdom of Carlos, and 20 or 30 noble territories. With a declaration of war by the Holy See on the Holy Mountain, the 5 extraordinary legions of the Holy See and the armies of dozens of noble territories coerced by the Holy See gathered at the northern border of the Kingdom of Carlos, a place called the Bordeaux Plateau. In one day, the entire empire was in a state of panic. The imperial army in the north began to gather towards the south and build a defense line in the Thousand Lakes province. The total number of troops on both sides, including the large number of slaves responsible for logistics, has reached 1 million on the battlefield of confrontation. This is a war between two overlords in the southern land that coerces the entire world, a famous scholar commented like this, and then on the last day of February, the time named by the Holy See as the birthday of the Son of God, more than 10 extraordinary legions launched an attack on the Thousand Lakes province of the empire. The name of the Thousand Lakes province comes from the unique terrain here. The west coast of the Norris continent is concave from the location of the Thousand Lakes province. In other words, the Thousand Lakes province is located in the northwest of the Kingdom of Carlos, and the kingdom is located in the southeast of the Thousand Lakes province. The Thousand Lakes province is located at the corner of the L shape of the terrain. Hundreds of thousands of islands have formed the most special province of this empire. There are many lakes, but they all lead directly to the ocean. This geographical location has led to an angle connecting the land of the empire and the Kingdom of Carlos, which is called the Pearl Bay. The empire and the Kingdom of Carlos both have navies in this bay because they need to resist the sea monsters living in the shallow sea of the Pearl Bay and plunder the valuable pearls called the goddess tears. 10 years ago, this kind of pearl was rated as the best spell medium for magicians, without a doubt. When the war broke out on this day, the navy of the empire and the navy of the Kingdom of Carlos suffered an extreme blow. One of the extraordinary legions of the Holy See, the Deep Sea Believer Legion, is composed of 9,000 tidal nagas. It appeared here from the Southern Ocean and dealt a devastating blow to the empire's navy in just half a day. The empire's navy was not strong to begin with. Under the sudden attack, it lost most of its strength and had to flee back to the Thousand Lakes province to repair. However, it was difficult for the empire to form a counterattack against the Holy See from the sea in such a short time. However, perhaps the commanders of both sides had the same idea. The navy of the Kingdom of Carlos was also completely destroyed by the empire's surprise attack. At this moment, the empire and the Holy See all lost their direct sea military power. As a last resort, the islands of the Thousand Lakes province became wars. From the first day, the armies of both sides fought on the islands on a large scale. At almost the same time, the war in the North Wind province that was not completed last year also began again. The armies of Earl Weiss and Viscount Hogg appeared in Tishan County and North Wind County. The full-scale war belonging to the North Wind province also unfolded in the world's great changes. However, compared with the World War in Pearl Bay in the south, the North Wind province has not been paid attention to at all, and many people don't even know what happened here. Is it such a coincidence? Even though he was in the frozen land, Ryan still knew the movements of Count Weiss and Viscount Hogg at the first time. As one of the 7 most powerful nobles in the North Wind province, Ryan can already decide the direction of this war in a small range. Let Lord Jazz go to Calais province in person and find Beard. Ryan handed the note in his hand to the knight team in front of him, and handed his Baron family badge to the other party. Let Beard purchase the things according to the requirements on it. Thanks to the relationship with the Viscountess, Lord Diaz's status in the frozen land is now second only to Ryan and Butler Beard. The other party is also very tactful and wants to tie himself to Ryan's car when he has the chance. Ryan naturally doesn't mind giving him a chance to go to the south to see the prosperity of the empire. As for the information on the note, it is the equipment that the great wizard McKen currently needs. There are too many things needed to train war horses. Also, let Lord Han come to see me, Ryan ordered. Sabin Han, who once helped him manage the remaining people in the Furnace City when Ryan was away, later came to the Frozen Territory, and Ryan made him the Lord of the Frozen Territory as promised. Now this lord not only has his own manor in the Frozen Territory, but is also Ryan's temporary herald. Because he has mastered a kind of bird spell, which is probably to use magic to attach to the woven wooden bird or paper bird, so that it can come alive and make a message. The way of communication is not to write, but to record Ryan's orders and then transmit them to a distant place. For the current Lord Han, the small frozen territory is enough for his magician's strength. The magic from another world has aroused some interest in the great wizard Maken. Perhaps Lord Han may become a powerful magician in the future. For now, Ryan needs him to follow him and convey his instructions. With the arrival of Lord Han, the Herald, Ryan's many orders began to be delivered to every corner of the frozen territory. The war in the North Wind Province has begun. Starting today, the 500 knights and squires will resume their food rations of 4 meals a day, and the militia will be guaranteed 3 meals a day. Even the militia must carry out 4 hours of military training every day during non-mission periods. Brock, you need to lead the craftsmen on Blacksmith Street to begin forging refined weapons and armor. I don't need weapons that will chip after 2 cuts. The weapons and armor worn by my knights cannot be worth less than 100 gold coins, and Etria, in the new year, every population in the frozen territory, even slaves and infants, must be registered and classified by block. More people need to be assigned to the security and sanitation issues on Firewood Street and Tavern Street. My territory cannot be too dirty, my lords. As nobles of the frozen territory, you are pioneers. In the new year, every lord must lead a pioneering team to open up the foothills. You can apply for a militia team for guarding and a hunting team as a guide. The best will be rewarded and the worst will be punished. Drinking water for irrigation. Ryan gave dozens of orders in a row. Watching the birds flying from Rhino Horn Mountain to various places in the frozen territory, everyone knew that the frozen territory would be busy again. And no one has forgotten that everyone in the frozen territory now owes the Lord a fortune. The houses they live in and the land they cultivate are all lent to them by Ryan before. With the development of the frozen territory, the lives of these people are indeed getting better, but at the same time, they also owe a lot of debts. Ryan doesn't care about these, but the people below can't help but care, because this is a lot of money for them. Ryan let them slowly repay the loan in the form of work, which made these civilians ecstatic. After all, if it were other noble lords, they would not be paid for pulling civilians to work. We must hurry up and let Lindu County start economic exchanges. Chapter 168 Exchange and Free Trade. Ryan has always had ideas about the economic development of the frozen land, but the most critical point of this matter is circulation. Productivity must interact and circulate to generate economy. Unless he, Ryan, can find a gold mine in the north, a large amount of gold coins and wealth can only be obtained in this way. For this step, Ryan's little notebook also has a record, that is, free trade. Ryan believes that as long as free trade is spread throughout the entire Lindu County and even the North Wind Province, then relying on the crops of the other world and the tens of thousands of people in the frozen land, it will be easy to bring him a lot of wealth. In the war in Tishan County at the end of last year, Ryan had opened up economic exchanges between Tishan County and Lindu County on a small scale. If all goes well, the lives of the noble lords in Lindu County will be better this year. But it's just a little. If you want more free trade, you need to open up more trade routes through more wars. When the major chambers of commerce in the south begin to reduce their investment in the North Wind Province, the economic trade within the North Wind Province must be active. This is Ryan's plan. Of course, the premise of everything is that the North Wind Province must act according to his will. Otherwise, Ryan would plant trees for others and let others pick peaches, which Ryan was unwilling to do. War, as a baron, commanding the entire North Wind Province, can only be war. Ryan thought so, and turned to the army camp under the Rhino Horn Mountain. With the development of the territory, the army has officially arrived at the north side of the Rhino Horn Mountain, that is, the land between the frozen Northgar River and the Rhino Horn Mountain. Looking up, you can see the large shadow covered by the protruding part of the majestic Rhino Horn Mountain. The war is coming, and Ryan also needs to train. The power of the Dragon Heart pushed his 3-night breathing methods to the level of the Silver Knight. Until now, he has not adapted to this powerful strength. Moreover, although he has the help of the Viscountess, Ryan still needs to spend some of his energy on night training. War has no habit of killing nobles, but what if? If Viscount Dragon is stronger, wouldn't he be able to survive? There are still too few people suitable for management. 3 days later, the New Year and the new Zero Crossing County Development Conference opened in the Frozen Land Territory. Ryan's statement made the nobles of Lindu County feel a little novel, so they came to the Frozen Land Territory as promised. At least they thought so, and it was definitely not because they were worried about the war in the North Wind Province this year. so they wanted to know what the Frozen Land Baron, a war strategist, was planning. Ryan, who had just finished training, looked at the dozens of noble members who came to the meeting hall of the Frozen Land Territory, put on the nobles' gorgeous robes sent by the maid, and his voice sounded seriously in the ears of these nobles. Everyone, you all know what the nobles in the south call the North Wind Province? Poor and cold are the labels given to us by the nobles in the south. Even because of this situation, even in the south, our relatives keep their distance from us. Ryan's words made these nobles frown unconsciously. Indeed, they were not welcome to go to the south. Which also led to the previous generation still thinking about returning to their homeland, but their generation of nobles rarely thought about going to the south. What are they going for? Are they looked down upon? Rather than being the head of a chicken, these nobles are only willing to bully others in the north. Cold is the price of the gods' interdimensional war. The cold brought by the winter wind cannot be driven away even by the gods. This has nothing to do with us, but Ryan looked at these nobles. Each of them was wearing gorgeous clothes that cost a lot of money. Are the nobles in the north really poor? Ryan asked, and these nobles began to think subconsciously. Of course they are not poor. Everyone here is a noble who owns several mines. Such a huge fortune allows us to be rich. This is a land resource that most nobles in the south cannot match for hundreds of years, but in our hands, such a huge wealth is difficult to turn into golden punk. We have huge land resources, but we can only watch the nobles in the south get richer little by little. We are forced to be labeled as poor. Do you know why? We obviously have more resources, but we are even less rich. Why? Baron Hatton asked subconsciously, and Ryan couldn't help but praise him. Because of circulation, our land resources cannot be smoothly circulated to distant places. Even within us, there is no economic exchange between noble territories. We can only rely on those chambers of commerce, so only those chambers of commerce truly know that the north has never been poor. We not only have the richest iron ore in the empire, but also have a vast undeveloped north. In the past, we handed over our resources to those chambers of commerce to earn a small amount of money, but none of us knows how much gold coins those chambers of commerce have earned in the south or even further away with our resources, but we can guess that the price of a Highland warhorse in the south is only a few dozen gold coins, but in the North Wind Province? You should have bought it, right, several times, or even 10 times the difference. The nobles have a good knowledge education, and they can react to this price difference even if they are slow. By the same token, what will happen to the price of iron ore from Bifang Province when it is transported to the south? The iron ore we mined in the past year should have a price difference of 10 times, if not 100 times, in the hands of those chambers of commerce. Otherwise, why would there still be chambers of commerce in Bifang Province today who are unwilling to give up the wealth here and go north despite being exploited by the Flying Wing Canyon? Everything is trade brought about by circulation. This is true for Bifang Province, and it is also true for the various noble territories in our Lingdu County. This year, everyone should have eaten game from Tishan County, right? Ryan's words finally made these nobles react. Yes, in last year's war, Tishan County was open to free trade by Ryan, resulting in a lot better food this year, and it can be vaguely seen that the gold coins in their pockets are indeed better than at the beginning of last year. There are not many good ones, but they really think they are managing well. Now hearing Ryan's words, it is obvious that this wealth comes from Tishan County. The nobles felt something strange in their hearts, but they couldn't tell what it was exactly. In short, it was a fact that they had more money. Chapter 169, Keen Sense of Smell. In this way, under the leadership of Ryan, the nobles of Lingdu County agreed to start exchanges in their respective territories. But they still didn't understand. Baron Ryan, in our territory, besides growing food, we also mine. Everyone has these things. What else can we trade? Indeed, the southern nobles said that the nobles of Bifang Province were poor, and a big reason was that they couldn't take out anything except iron ore. Each territory relies on different geographical environments, and there must be things that the people of other noble territories need. What's more, even if there is nothing, in the exchange, those craftsmen and even farmers can also obtain better skills, so as to serve us nobles, right? Ryan certainly couldn't say that this was for the purpose of exporting the handmade crops of the frozen land territory, and he wanted to eat meat while others could only drink soup. He certainly knew that most of these noble territories didn't have any special products to show off. In this era, the noble territories were more focused on farming. But Ryan wanted to turn the tens of thousands of people in the frozen land territory into gold coins, which was definitely not something that farming could do. Development is not only about reclaiming wasteland internally, but also about opening up sources of income externally. Exchange can make our territory develop faster. If it develops well, we will naturally have money, but in addition to this, there is another key point. Ryan's expression was serious. War. He finally talked about the topic that these nobles were most concerned about. The war in Bifang province has started again. In Tishan County, our noble friends have almost fallen into a situation of full-scale war through the war mobilization at the end of the year. Spring plowing has not yet arrived. Whether it is Tishan County or Yinchuan County, they seem to want to end the war before spring plowing. This is a war that will affect the entire Bifang province for decades or hundreds of years in the future. We cannot stay out of it. As soon as Ryan spread it, Baron Enzo raised his head. Are we still sending troops to Tishan County this time? This is what they did last year. Their slave soldiers received militarized training in that war. After returning to the territory, many of them even became soldier instructors under these nobles, responsible for training soldiers, which can be regarded as implementing class transition. In addition to Baron Enzo's ideas, there are also barons with sad faces. Baron Ryan, we have experienced too many wars, and the young and strong in the territory have suffered heavy losses. I heard that the Chamber of Commerce will not transport slaves to Bifang province this year. The war in the south needs more cannon fodder. The absence of young and strong is fatal to territory, affecting all aspects of the entire territory. At the same time, it is also regarded as a sign of the decline of the nobles. Don't force this matter. Each of us has experienced too many wars and too many soldiers have died, Ryan said, and then looked at Baron Enzo. This time, we will not go to Tishan County. Although we can't lose too much there, we can't get anything. For this year's war, I plan to go to Longshan County and Bifang County. If the war is to end, it will only be on the battlefields of those earls, so, this year's war may no longer be a war that belongs to all of us. The nobles in Lingdu County will all depend on whether they send troops to participate. Risks and benefits coexist. If you want to gain a greater glory than our fathers, you can't do it without fighting hard. Ryan's words made the nobles look a little weird. Did he include himself? In this year's war, Ryan no longer planned to drag a group of slaves to fight. He only wanted elite soldiers. After all, in such a battlefield, slaves who couldn't even get enough food could not form any combat effectiveness. Facing the extraordinary army, they could only be slaughtered. If you want to achieve results, time is very important, so naturally there is no extra time to train those slave soldiers. The nobles gradually left. They needed to think about the gains and losses of this matter, and Baron Hatton, as a neighbor, stayed until the end. Ryan, didn't you ask me to help you understand the affairs of the Andorra Kingdom last year? My relatives in the south have already sent a letter, Baron Hatton said seriously. The old king of Andorra can no longer suppress the great nobles below. The royal family now only has an extraordinary army of less than 3,000 people. Now in the Andorra Kingdom, the most powerful extraordinary army is the Light Griffin army of Grand Duke MacReynolds, who relies on the Griffin Mountains. Ryan looked surprised. If this is the case, then many things make sense. In this case, the nobles of the Andorra Kingdom need weapons even more. Why hasn't the Viscount Fragoso's family come to buy weapons from me yet? Ryan came back to his senses and suddenly looked at Baron Hatton and asked, has the Chamber of Commerce arrived in the North Wind province? Baron Hatton was able to get the news from the southern nobles because he must have sent letters through the Chamber of Commerce. There is no complete information transmission route between the Empire and the North Wind province. This is why Ryan's status and reputation in Lingdu County are not known to the south. Yes, this year's Chamber of Commerce arrived faster than every year before, and they brought a lot of food this time. Hatton looked at Ryan. He now knew that Ryan's frozen land territory had a terrible demand for food. Now the Chamber of Commerce is in Fie Canyon. Ryan, you also know that the North Wind province has started a war, and those chambers of commerce are also worried about their safety after entering the province. They are very anxious. Ryan caught the information Baron Hatton said. Every year when the Chamber of Commerce came to the North Wind province, it was not so cold and the road was easy to walk. That is, from March to April. But this year, it is only February now. Mr. Hatton, you might as well send someone to the Wing Canyon to ask those chambers of commerce what they want. Ryan's eyes showed wisdom and thought, and then he called a maid next to him. Go and get the weapons from Brock's blacksmith shop. Not long after, Ryan handed the knight sword in his hand to Baron Hatton. When you send someone, take this weapon with you, tell them that this is the forging process of frozen soil. Hatton was not stupid. He reacted at this moment and couldn't help looking at Ryan. Didn't we have a clear understanding of ourselves in the previous meeting? In the Northwind province, besides the large number of iron mines, what else is worthy of the attention of those chambers of commerce? But the finished weapons are very expensive. They can just buy iron mines as before and then transport them to the south to use iron smelting technology. Ryan shook his head and denied Hatton's guess. Mr. Hatton, you forgot one thing, time. Ryan's eyes were deep. They don't have much time. Turning iron ore into weapons will waste a lot of their time. Ryan looked at the sky in the south. The war was not only breaking out in the Northern Wind Province. Compared with the war in the Northern Wind Province, the war in the Thousand Lakes Province in the south was countless times more terrible. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 170 The Needs of the Chamber of Commerce. After a long time, Baron Hatton finally reacted and looked at Ryan. Ryan, you can turn the frozen land into this, your talent surpasses countless nobles. His voice was sincere, surprised by Ryan's sense of smell, and he also understood that once the frozen land took the lead in the transaction with the Chamber of Commerce, it would represent enviable wealth. Moreover, with Ryan's current importance in Lingdu County, he can completely drive the iron weapons of Lingdu County to trade with the Chamber of Commerce, which means that it is very likely that these nobles can also profit. Before entering the war, Lingdu County can obtain a lot of wealth, so these nobles will have no problem supporting Ryan. The metabolism of the noble family is very slow. As living nobles, they will look up to Ryan's will in the future. Baron Hatton left that day, but came to the frozen land again 2 days later. Next to him was a sturdy middle-aged man with a sharp look. He was a noble, but he looked like a knight. Looking at this man, Ryan seemed to see Baron Enzo. Born of noble blood, lingering in blood and fire, this is the original ancient nobles. The reason why nobles became nobles is because their ancestors had made unparalleled achievements on the battlefield. Many people want to emulate, but many people fail. Ryan originally thought that Baron Hatton was just an ordinary baron, just like he used to be, living in his own baron territory. But obviously, as a baron with iron mines in the Northwind province, Mr. Hatton has also been noticed by his relatives. Frank Booth, meet Baron Ryan, a standard knight's etiquette. Frank still looked at Ryan with some disbelief at this moment. He never thought that Baron Hatton would tell him that if he could not get the approval of this baron, he would not get any iron ore in Lingdu County. On behalf of the Lantern Chamber of Commerce, I come to discuss with you the purchase of iron weapons. Is it just you? Ryan looked at Baron Hatton with a smile, and the baron smiled unconsciously. Ryan, the Lantern Chamber of Commerce is one of the top 10 chambers of commerce under the Imperial Chamber of Commerce. If they can get weapons of sufficient quality, other chambers of commerce will naturally come. Okay, Ryan looked at Frank again. How much do you want? The Lantern Chamber of Commerce, 10,000 sets of armor and 30,000 long swords, Frank said frighteningly. The main theme of the world is knights, and for knights, there are 3 most important things: knight armor, knight swords, and mounts. Any knight will pursue better quality mounts and weapons and armor. Naturally, the 3 indispensable things are not cheap. For each set of knight armor, the Lantern Chamber of Commerce is willing to pay 60 gold coins. Of course, if you can ensure that the quality of the armor and knight sword is as high as the one you sent over, for a knight sword, we are willing to pay 8 gold coins. Brock's craftsmanship is absolutely top-notch, otherwise Frank in front of him would not have offered a high price, but Ryan still felt it was too little. For armor and swords of that quality, you have to pay 120 gold coins and 15 gold coins, otherwise I won't sell them. Ryan shook his head. Mr. Frank, you are a knight, you know the value of those things very well, and even in the frozen land, there are not many armor and weapons of this quality. For the remaining armor and swords, I can only mobilize the entire Lingdu County to help you forge them 35 gold coins for armor and 2 gold coins for weapons. Frank frowned. Your price is too high, you are giving too little. Ryan shook his head and said, in the entire empire, You can't find another company that forges weapons with such skills, but they only sell you this much." Frank blinked, then bowed his head and responded respectfully. "According to your wishes, Baron Ryan." The deal was settled, but Frank required that it must be prepared within a month. That was the time when the Chamber of Commerce had prepared how to enter the North Wind province safely. "Don't worry, Mr. Frank," Ryan was not in a hurry. He had mixed up a lot of arms in the previous war. He originally planned to sell them to the nobles of the neighboring Andorra kingdom. As a result, no one came now, so it would be the same if he sold them to the Empire. As for the remaining share, there are still so many nobles in Lindu County. If they gather together, they can still make up the share. The key lies in the things forged by Brock. Those are the high-quality weapons that really attracted the attention of Knight Frank. In the entire empire, there is really no other company with the same cost-effectiveness. The most important thing is that as a knight, Frank knows very well how deadly it is for a knight to hold such armor and weapons that he can handle with ease and even improve the skills of the knight. He believes that if conditions permit, the high-quality knight swords produced in the frozen land will be famous. At Ryan's invitation, the heir of the Earl's family stayed in the frozen land. Of course, Frank was also curious about the Lindu County that Mr. Hatton said was completely different from his own heart. He wanted to see what the situation was in the North Wind province. The nobles in the south didn't know anything at all. As for Ryan, he soon welcomed his second guest from the Chamber of Commerce. Lord Baron Ryan. Ryan looked at Irina in front of him, smiled and looked down for a moment. "Irina, you are still so generous and beautiful." As the manager of the Blade Rose Chamber of Commerce in the North Wind province, Irina looked at Ryan with resentment at this moment. "Lord Baron Ryan, we agreed at the beginning that when you come to the frozen territory this year, all your transactions will be with our Blade Rose." What? As a serious nobleman, Ryan certainly did not believe in any verbal promises, especially when facing businessmen. "You just made a deal with the Lantern Chamber of Commerce today," Irina mentioned it obscurely, which made Ryan laugh. "I was saying that Frank, the son of the Earl, as a knight, how could you be suitable to be the manager of the Chamber of Commerce?" His eyes fell on Irina's round figure. "You are a real businessman. Thank you for the compliment, Lord Baron," Irina said with a little pride. "Then your Blade Rose Chamber of Commerce also needs weapons." It was night. The lady-in-waiting of the castle, the Viscountess, walked through the wide corridor. As soon as she opened the door, she heard a voice that made her ears turn red. Then she gritted her teeth and walked in. "It really needs to be bigger," Ryan's low murmur came in the dark night. Chapter 171 Snow Dragon's Roar. The war in the southern Thousand Lakes province was delayed. The Empire failed to expel the armies of the Church and the Kingdom in the first place. Every day, the Thousand Lakes Island was occupied and counterattacked. The huge number of troops cannot carry out large-scale wars in a place full of lakes and islands. They can only hunt each other in small areas with night teams as units. The battlefield chosen by the Church is very good. Pearl Bay and the Thousand Lakes province make it difficult for the Empire to exert its huge war potential. Moreover, both sides seem unwilling to break out a comprehensive and absolute world war, so the battlefield is limited to the Thousand Lakes province. Irina's delicate and weak murmur came to his ears, and Ryan couldn't help but marvel at the wisdom of the Empire and the Church. The war was delayed. On the surface, both the Church and the Empire needed huge numbers and military armaments. This is why these chambers of commerce are anxious to come to the North Wind province. They want the weapons of the North Wind province. This is on the surface. It seems that the Church and the Empire, and that kingdom are consuming each other. But apart from this, both the Empire and the Church can profit from the war. Those nobles couldn't see it because they had no experience. They had never seen a war that made them richer the longer they fought. The so-called wealth here does not just mean simple money. Ryan made this judgment because of a piece of news given by Irina. Neither the extraordinary legions of the Empire nor the Church took action, because the terrain of the Thousand Lakes province is not suitable for a large-scale war between them. The Church is to spread faith, so what about the Empire? They also need faith, Ryan suddenly reacted. Now on the Norris continent, only the Empire has openly expelled the existence of the Church. Theocracy and royal power are concentrated in the Columbus royal family, but the other kingdoms and dukedoms are still watching, or they are willing to see if they have the power. The Empire wants to give confidence to those wavering nobles through war, and the same is true for the Church. This war is not a show, but a fight of blood and fire. Both sides are fighting for the so-called faith. Even if it is a small-scale war, there will be heavy casualties. In this case, it's an opportunity for Brock. Ryan thought so. Brock's skills belong to the craftsmanship of a fairy craftsman, and he might shine because of this. Thinking of this, Ryan couldn't help but be more satisfied with the Snow White beside him. He stretched out his hand to pour the milk brought by the maid beside the bed on the other's tall and white skin, then turned over and lowered his head to sip. Wake up. After Irina woke up, she took the armor and weapons forged by Brock and took a carriage back to the Wing Canyon. As a portal opened by Ryan again, the high-quality weapons with the imprint of Rinahorn Mountain will be sent to the Knights of the World. You have to think of a resounding name, the kind that makes people feel excited when they hear it. On the other side, Frank Booth looked at the rich breakfast in front of him and couldn't help but feel a little confused. Fresh milk, vegetable salad. A servant beside him said respectfully, "The north is very cold. In the snowstorm, the milk sent from the south can also be refrigerated well. The Lord specially taught us to dig out the frozen soil and ice layer and build a cold storage buried in the mountain. The natural winter ice and snow keep the food fresh and will not go bad for several months. It is as fresh when it is taken out." This is a servant who has been specially trained in speech skills. He follows Frank, firstly to ensure that Frank, a noble, will not ask those civilians strange questions, and secondly to dispel the other party's doubts. For example, the servant will never tell him that the fresh milk is transported from another wilderness world. There is not only cow's milk, but also mare's milk, goat's milk, and various berries and vegetables. By noon, there is no shortage of meat. Frank nodded and agreed with this reason. Mainly because he is dedicated to the practice of knights and he will not think of other answers at all. "Where is Baron Ryan, Lord?" The servant hesitated a little. He didn't know whether the Lord was up now, but he heard from the maid that the Lord also had a schedule today. The Lord should have gone to Lord Brock. Lord Brock is the chief craftsman of the frozen land. The weapon you are trading with was forged by Lord Brock himself. Oh, Frank's eyes lit up. "Can I go and see? I hope to meet this craftsman with superb skills." The servant didn't dare to make the decision. "I'm afraid it requires the Lord's consent." "Brock, what do you think these knight swords should be named?" "In my opinion, why not call it Snow Dragon Song? Look at the rhinoceros horn mountain carved on it. Doesn't it look like a giant dragon rushing out of the snow and roaring at the world, shaking the earth and the sky?" Ryan said excitedly, but Brock next to him was a little dissatisfied, as if he felt that Ryan had interrupted his forging. "I heard from Atria that you haven't left the blacksmith shop since you came back from the south. I think you should take a rest." Brock put down the hammer in his hand and said, "Lord Ryan, these things are just ordinary goods I forge every day. How can they be named Snow Dragon Song?" Brock was very satisfied with the name Ryan gave, but he disagreed with the name being given to such an ordinary knight's sword. "Ordinary?" Ryan shook his head. "Brock, this sword is very ordinary for you, but in the outside world, this is the pinnacle that can be reached without using extraordinary materials, because there was no extraordinary material to practice with." Ryan was almost certain that Brock's skills in ordinary iron tools were probably unmatched by few people in the entire empire. And Brock is wrong about one thing. Snow Dragon Song is not the name of a weapon, but a series. Do you know what a sequence is? Then you should know my butler Beard. His father, my old butler, is also called Beard. Ordinary civilians don't even have the qualifications to be named. Their children can only carry on their names. Beard's child is called Little Beard. Similarly, many people in the world are like this. Snow Dragon Song is the same. At present, this name is only used on these knight swords. In the future, this name can also be the name of a mithril sword or a fine gold sword. Even if you can do it, Snow Dragon Song will become the name of a legendary weapon. At that time, this name will be unique, and all knights holding weapons with this name will be proud of it because they have the same name as the legend. This is a series. The end of the series represents the legendary weapon, and the end of the series is the everyday weapons you are forging now. With a good start, the knights who once purchased the ordinary Snow Dragon Song series of knight swords are likely to purchase the higher level Snow Dragon Song in the future. Just like the bitter winter in the north, the weapons you forge will be accompanied by this name, roaring from the north and breaking into the vast southern world, allowing those ignorant knights to see what the Snow Dragon of the north is. By then, we will be very rich and can buy all kinds of extraordinary materials. Chapter 172 Expedition. Brock's eyes were glowing. However, before the Snow Dragon Song series broke out of the north, a deafening sound like the roar of a giant dragon came from the north of the frozen land. The blizzard lasted for several months, resulting in heavy snow accumulation. Now the snow is melting, and a large amount of snow on the mountain peaks is avalanching down. Listening to the knight's report, Ryan stood on the Rhinoceros Horn Mountain and said to Brock beside him, "Brock, this is the snow dragon of the north. You won't let this name be disgraced, right?" Brock fell into a special state and came back to his senses after a long time. "The weapons I forge will definitely be different from those forged by anyone else." He turned and left. It seems that these earth-shaking avalanches have brought Brock a lot of opportunities. If there is an avalanche, a large area of land will be exposed. Send hunters to the north to explore. In addition, it is time to build a few towers. Ryan looked at the north. Although he could see far away from the Rhino Horn Mountain, the vastness of the north was not something he could see from here. If there were towers, his vision would be extended to farther places. And the key point is that the cordon of the territory can also be expanded, and the frozen land territory can be expanded legitimately. The ice and snow in the north are already melting. The movement of the avalanche represents not only the arrival of spring, but also the bell of war. The day after the avalanche, Earl Winter's envoy, a team of knights came to the frozen land territory. "Lord Baron Ryan, the Earl asked me to say hello to you on his behalf. At the same time, I would like to ask you when the army of Lingdu County can set off." Ryan nodded, and then said, "The army of Lingdu County will be assembled in half a month, and then go to Longshan County to assist Earl Soren." After that, he asked the knight captain with the strength of a silver knight. "The war is not optimistic." The knight captain did not nod or deny, but said respectfully, "The armies of Earl Weiss and Viscount Huog have entered Longshan County and Bifang County. The armies of the two counties are gathered at the border. Earl Soren is unwilling to send troops into Bifang province, so he can only resist in the two counties separately. Neither of the two earls was willing to send his army into the other's territory to assist in the defense of the war, fearing that Earl Weiss and Viscount Huog's cavalry could change direction and attack the other earl's territory at any time. This also led to a lot of pressure on both sides. I know, you just need to pass my decision to the two earls." After the team left, Ryan immediately sent people to the various noble territories in Lingdu County. "I have let Lingdu County enjoy the arms trade with the Chamber of Commerce exclusively. Now, it's time for everyone to show sincerity." In just 10 days, 3,000 soldiers gathered in Lingdu City, including the 500 knight attendants and guards led by Ryan, a total of 3,500 soldiers. Looking at these soldiers, Ryan was quite satisfied. These nobles were not useless. Although they did not mobilize for war like Tishan County, they still carefully trained their soldiers in a winter even though they knew the war was not over yet. These 3,000 soldiers were not composed of slaves as before, but regular soldiers. Moreover, with so many of them, the nobles would probably only have some crooked soldiers left. "Baron Ryan, our soldiers have been handed over to you personally. You must bring us victory." Some nobles could not help but worry and said that if these 3,000 soldiers were buried far away, their lives would not be much better than those in Tishan County. Even the two newly promoted viscounts could not help but worry. Lingdu County had never had such an army composed purely of regular soldiers. In the past, everyone had an army composed of regular soldiers and slave soldiers, letting the slaves rush to the front and consume them before the soldiers pushed forward. After more than a year of war, they only had these troops left. No one can guarantee victory or defeat in a war, but I, Ryan, will ensure that these soldiers will not all be buried in a foreign land. Ryan rode on a war horse. Archmage McKen was still training Winter, so the war horse he rode this time was still from the previous batch. Looking at the various flags in the army, thanks to the income from the iron forging, no noble in Lingdu County withdrew. They were also worried that if they did not participate in this war, the subsequent transactions with the Chamber of Commerce would be resisted by other nobles. Everyone was in the noble circle. If there were nobles who did not fit in, they would be isolated. So no matter what, the nobles had to grit their teeth and arrange soldiers to participate in this war. Fortunately, Ryan did take into account the number of young and strong men under the command of each noble, and only transferred the elite, and did not even plan to ask for logistics. "Earl Soren will prepare all the supplies for us." Although he had not received a reply yet, Ryan still said so. As an expeditionary army of Lingdu County, this logistical pressure must be given to the two earls. With his knight attendants, Ryan's high-flying snow-white flag came to the front of the army. The Rhinoceros Horn Mountain depicted on it became the direction of the army. After 3 days of training outside Lingdu City, Ryan dragged all the nobles to watch for 3 days. Once any noble soldiers had problems, he would look over. Everyone is a noble, and they have to look up. Moreover, this kind of training and parade is undoubtedly a competition of the strength of each territory. Who is strong and who is weak may affect their relationship in the next few years. This also led to the soldiers, like Chicken Blood, exerting 12 points of strength and brain to remember Ryan's orders and the sound of the horn on the battlefield. It's enough to remember and know what to do. Ryan's requirements are not that high. After 3 days, after eating a lot of precious meat, bread and risotto, this army belonging to Lingdu County embarked on an expedition. Why do I feel like the last meal of execution? Ryan said with a smile and burped. It was rare for him to eat from the same pot with these soldiers, which made many people look at him with some changes. Ryan certainly didn't care, but Baron Enzo next to him seemed to have learned something. On the way, he didn't even eat with Ryan, but stayed with his soldiers. In any matter, excess is as bad as deficiency. You need both grace and authority. However, considering that Baron Enzo only had a few dozen knights in attendance around him, Ryan didn't say anything. Longshan County, here we are. Chapter 173. We have an active bottom line. Longshan County, the origin of the name comes from one or more bipedal dragons. The original Earl Soren used dragon blood to bathe himself, his bloodline and his soldiers. This also led to the fact that the knights of Earl Soren's extraordinary legion, the Dragon Blood Warrior Corps, were inherited through blood. To become a member of Earl Soren's extraordinary legion, the first thing you need is a bloodline that has been bathed in dragon blood. At first, there were only 500 people bathed in dragon blood. Later, as the Earl's family continued to intermarry with those bloodlines, slowly, there were 3,000 dragon blood warriors in the Earl Soren family today. However, with the passage of time, except for the Earl's family itself, the dragon blood of other soldiers has become very thin. It is said that this Earl Soren used some kind of magic potion to sublimate and stabilize that bloodline, thus solving the disaster that the Dragon Blood Warrior Corps might disappear in history. This is also why Earl Soren has a high reputation. Even Grand Duke Myers did not kill the Earl at the beginning. That kind of potion can not only maintain the existence of Count Soren's Dragon Blood Warriors, but also Count Winter's Flying Wolf Cavalry and those Unicorn Flying Wolf mounts, which also need this potion to maintain the size of their own tribe. The value is unimaginably high, so this Earl's family cannot be said to have become wealthy entirely by mining. Ryan led the army to Greystone Castle, which is more than 200 miles away from the Dragon Mountain City where Count Soren is located, and less than 100 miles away from the border between Dragon Mountain County and Thunder Cloud County. This is a war fortress left by the Imperial Army in the past, and it does not belong to any noble for the time being. When he arrived here, there were still 180 soldiers in the fortress, and that afternoon, Count Soren's envoy also arrived here. Count Soren and the nobles of Dragon Mountain County greet you, the honorable lord of the frozen earth, Baron Ryan. Greetings to Count Soren and the nobles of Dragon Mountain County. Ryan performed a noble etiquette and then looked at the eldest son of the Earl in front of him. Feder Solon, the future Earl, although he didn't know how long this future would last. Baron Ryan, I brought the Earl's order. Your soldiers need to defend the Greystone Castle. Viscount Huck's cavalry wants to enter Longshan County. There are only 2 ways, one of which is here. In addition, Count Weiss's army may also appear here. The army that the Earl has is more than we thought. In 2 days, the first batch of logistical supplies will arrive here. At that time, you may need to send troops to meet them. At the end, Feder also whispered, Viscount Huck's cavalry has been trying to cut off the transportation of supplies within Longshan County and Bifang County during this period. Baron Ryan, please pay attention, for Count Solon, they really have no choice but to deal with that highly mobile cavalry. The Earl's family assets are almost all placed on that extraordinary legion. Dragon Blood Warriors, the top infantry. But now there are only 2,300 people left, which also caused the old Earl Solon to hate Earl Weiss more than anyone else. The Dragon Blood Warrior Legion, which is maintained by blood, is different from other extraordinary soldiers. I will defend this line of defense. Ryan nodded. What made him a little strange was the defense. Is the situation so grim? It seems that we have to make friends with a few nobles, Ryan said to Enzo with a smile. He couldn't leave, so it would be best to leave this matter to Baron Enzo, who is also a noble. Leave that day, and Baron Enzo will return the next day. The war here is more incomprehensible than we thought. Baron Enzo's eyes were also full of confusion. Earl Weiss's army is almost crushing the armies of 2 counties. Ryan was also shocked. This didn't make sense. It's impossible that every soldier in Count Weiss's army is a barbarian, right? Of course not, but the other soldiers under his command are indeed very barbaric. They wear animal skin armor and behave in the same way as barbarians. The most important thing is that they are fearless. The last adjective almost completely explains why the power of the 2 counties was completely suppressed by Count Weiss in the war. Fearless is a very powerful title. If the soldiers were not afraid of death, Ryan would dare to lead these thousands of people to challenge the dragon. But often, if 1 person died, 10 people around would shrink back. If 10 people died, 100 people would hesitate, and if 100 people died, 1,000 soldiers might retreat. This principle led to the war being almost one-sided. The Northwind province was not peaceful to begin with. Those soldiers who survived many wars were not too afraid of death, but facing the group of barbarians under Count Weiss who were not barbarians, the difference was obvious. What about the so-called Thunder Giant? Earl Winter fought against him personally, but he seemed to be at a disadvantage. That giant, he has become more powerful, but he still has no wisdom. I don't know how Earl Weiss controlled him. The situation in Longshan County is not optimistic. Viscount Huang's cavalry is constantly harassing the noble territory of Longshan County. This is not Tishan County. Their cavalry is galloping freely on the land, and Earl Weiss's barbarian army also has nearly 2,000 barbarians following him. That Earl Weiss, Baron Enzo didn't know what to say, so he could only say the original words of the noble. He wants to use the barbarian army to fight against the Dragon Blood warrior army. This is also the reason why Earl Soren has not dared to send his extraordinary army to the battlefield until now. He is really afraid that Earl Weiss will not care about the life and death of the barbarian army and just want to die with him. It's not a solution to drag it out. Count Weiss doesn't want to delay the war, right? Yes, so Count Weiss's army will arrive here soon. Baron Enzo waved his hand. They had just arrived and were immediately assigned to the front line. He felt that Baron Ryan still overestimated Count Soren. Even though he was a member of the Dragon Blood family, Count Soren was still old and didn't dare to risk his army to fight to the death. Along the way, the Baron praised the Earl, but in the current situation, their Greystone Castle might face the most terrible pressure. Don't worry, Enzo, we don't have long legs. At worst, we can just go back to the frozen land. If it doesn't work, we can still surrender to Count Weiss, as long as Count Weiss hasn't betrayed his country and surrendered to the alien race. He is a great noble of the Empire, isn't he? Ryan acted very relaxed. Indeed, as a noble, there are many choices, which are nothing more than exchanging interests and compromises. He could be the winner by standing on the side of Bifang County and Longshan County, or he could be the winner by standing on the side of Liayan County and Yinchuan County. As the nobles of the remote Lingdu County, their interests would not be affected too much. Baron Enzo's eyes widened. He never expected to get such an answer from Ryan. Along the way, he was worried about how to fight this war. Chapter 174, Food and Grass arrived, Cavalry intercepted. In 2 days, the grain and grass from Longshan County will arrive at Greystone Castle as scheduled. However, on this day, Viscount Huang's cavalry appeared outside Greystone Castle, making it clear that they did not want the grain to enter Greystone Castle. My Lord Baron, Nitaset Soren sent a letter saying that they are stationed in the river valley and dare not move forward. They want us to go out and rescue them. In Greystone Castle, Ryan listened to the soldiers' report and never responded. We are passive. Count Weiss and Viscount Huang did not want to forcefully attack Greystone Castle, a fortress that is easy to defend and difficult to attack. They wanted to force them out. If they were on the open battlefield, they would not be afraid of Ryan's army. In just 1 year, Viscount Hogg has grown up and stopped making rash advances. Perhaps he is also worried that his extraordinary legion seeds will be lost too much? Are all the things ready? Ryan looked at Baron Enzo, who nodded. There are 200 chevaux de frise in total, but these things are very heavy. Then let the knights take them. Soon, Ryan led 3,500 soldiers out of Greystone Castle, leaving no one behind. In less than half an hour, they saw thousands of troops running on the land. Ryan, we meet again. I will definitely win this time. Viscount Hogg looked at Ryan and shouted loudly. Ryan rode on his warhorse and looked at Viscount Hogg, frowning. You want to beat me with such a small army? You can't win with only cavalry and no infantry. Viscount Hogg laughed coldly, his voice loud. Ryan, you will know, boom. Looking at the cavalry in front of him disappearing from his sight, Ryan looked at Baron Enzo next to him. Do you know what he is going to do? I don't know, Baron Enzo shook his head. He could also feel that Viscount Hogg's fighting style had changed. To be precise, it was a great change from the war style of the nobles like them. Ryan drove his warhorse to the place where Viscount Hogg's army had just been and sniffed. Brand, he shouted loudly, and soon Brand came to his side. Do you smell it? Brand frowned and looked at Ryan. My lord, this is Greece. It seems that our Lord Viscount Hogg has learned the way we defeated them in the past and wants to burn our food. But what's the point of this? Of course, it makes sense. This way we can't hide in the Greystone Castle. We can only take the initiative to attack and fight them. What should we do now? If Viscount Hogg doesn't fight them head-on, they will not be able to catch up with the cavalry. The terrain of Longshan County is very flat, which is very advantageous for cavalry. That depends on the ability of that asset. Ryan seemed not to worry about the food being burned at all, which made Baron Enzo next to him a little confused. Leon, our food can only last for 2 days at most. If we don't have food, are we really going to give up Greystone Castle? Of course, Greystone Castle is not a good place, Ryan said calmly. He was unwilling to let Earl Soren defend Greystone Castle. If the food was burned, he would have a legitimate reason. Hearing Ryan's words, Baron Enzo finally reacted. Don't you want to stay here? There's nothing here. The bare Greystone Fort will be a meat grinder if it is attacked by force. Do you want to stay here? We are facing only Viscount Hogg's army, or even just the cavalry. If Count Weiss's barbarian army arrives, we will all die here. When the time comes, the cavalry will chase us and we won't even be able to escape. I don't know if Count Soren did it on purpose, but he will be very happy if the barbarian army and we are both defeated. In that way, not too many people in his Dragon Blood warrior army will die. Baron Enzo, don't forget that you are not only the deputy commander of the army, but also a noble. You have to think about the gains and losses from both military and political aspects. Unless I can control the entire Longshan County army, whoever wants to go to this Greystone Fort can go. Baron Enzo fell silent, still a little confused. What if that our side has kept the food? That's even easier. We can attack from both sides and keep Viscount Hogg's cavalry army in this land forever. In this way, won't we be able to give an explanation to the two earls? But in this case, Baron Enzo, you underestimate our old rival too much. Ryan felt that in the entire Northwind province, besides him, only Viscount Hogg was more like a military strategist. The Legion advanced in an orderly manner, and soon Ryan saw the sky in front of him, reflecting the sky-high flames, screams one after another, and the roar of the iron hooves of war horses trampling on the land. Move out all the chevaux de frise, the soldiers in the rear dispersed, and the knights hiding in the middle carried the chevaux de frise and placed them in the front. The huge army just stood there quietly, watching the sky-high flames and the chaotic road battlefield in front. Boom! Thousands of fully armed cavalry appeared in front of Ryan. He looked at Viscount Hogg, who was wearing a golden cloak, with a smile on his face. He stretched out his finger and pointed at the chevaux de frise in front of him. Sure enough, the moment he saw the chevaux de frise, Viscount Hogg's face was horribly ugly. Ryan, you actually gave up defending Greystone Castle. I didn't give up, it's just that Viscount Hogg didn't go to occupy it. With a chevaux de frise in front, Viscount Hogg didn't dare to let his cavalry charge, so he turned his horse's head and looked at his masterpiece with a gloomy face. But there was no way. He would rather charge towards this chaotic and burning grain transport team than face Ryan's direction. The terrain difference in this river valley is not large. Logically, there are many directions for him to leave, but if he chooses to go to the side, he is worried that his cavalry tail will be left behind by Ryan's army, so he can only choose the opposite direction. Charge. Let's go the other way. It must be said that Viscount Hogg also put in a lot of effort this winter. The warhorse under him did not fear the flames like he did last year in Tishan County and dared not move forward. With a mighty charge, it was unknown how many people were left behind. In the end, Viscount Hogg's cavalry army still left here. Ryan was very jealous of the mobility of the cavalry. He didn't know when his warhorse would be trained. What a pity, just as Viscount Hogg thought, if he dared to go in the direction where Ryan was, even if he bypassed the barricades and left from the side, his cavalry would definitely be left behind by at least 100 people. Ryan touched the beast bow hanging on the horse's back. The beast bow from the winter forest was expensive, and it used bark, horns and tendons. After being soaked in the unique craftsmanship and potions of the druids, these beast bows could be called the world's top bows. Ryan was looking forward to their first appearance on the battlefield, but it was a pity that Viscount Hogg was so courageous that he didn't confront him head-on. Chapter 175 Barony of Solis. Send someone to find out how many of Viscount Hogg's knights were left behind, since they chose to charge towards the burning grain transport team with 700 or 800 slave soldiers. No matter how powerful they were, some people would definitely be left behind for various reasons. Viscount Hogg's cavalry was not a complete extraordinary army after all. Brand advanced with 1,000 soldiers, and Ryan soon heard the angry roar of the Asset Knight of Count Sorin's family. Baron Ryan, you came too late. The grain has been set on fire. Ryan looked at the rough and sturdy man in front of him. The other's pupils were similar to Ryan's, but with a deep dark red, not like Ryan's gem-like dazzling, like a real dragon's eyes. Knight Arset, you are also a silver knight. This time you were responsible for transporting food to Greystone Castle, but you lost all the food on the way. Have you thought about how to explain it to Count Thoron? Arset Thoron's face turned pale, and he said angrily, it's not my fault. Viscount Hogg's cavalry scouts discovered us, and, Baron Ryan, you are too slow. If Count Thoron can give me thousands of war horses, then I will definitely let my soldiers come faster than Viscount Hogg. If there are so many war horses, you can still be used. Arset thought in his heart, but he didn't dare to say it out loud. Anyway, if you can come earlier, the food will not be burned. That's not my task, knight. Remember your identity, and the order I received is to defend Greystone Castle. Well, now there is no food, and I can't defend Greystone Castle anymore. Ryan waved his hand and looked ahead. The fire had been gradually extinguished, and the food was still not burning fast, and about 50% was retained. But Ryan couldn't care less, as the food had been completely burned. Damn Viscount Hogg. He smiled at the knight in front of him. Knight, the most important thing for you now is to go back and transport the food again. Otherwise, if Greystone Castle is really lost, I won't be the one responsible. No matter what Lord Count Sorin does, he can't control a baron like me, right? Aset's face turned pale, and he finally realized. The food is gone. He kept shaking his head. The Earl can no longer transport the second batch of grain to Greystone Castle. This is the only batch. After the blizzard last year, the grain production in the entire northern border was reduced. In addition, the war was very costly. The fact that this batch of grain could be transported to Greystone Castle was the result of the support of the nobles of the entire Longshan County. Moreover, in order to safely transport this batch of grain, the Earl has taken the initiative to attack the army of Earl Weiss on the other side of the Highland defense line. I didn't expect Viscount Hogg's cavalry to leave and come here. Aset's body was trembling. Most of the grain was burned. The Earl could not blame Baron Ryan, so the responsibility could only be on him. So, I really can't defend Greystone Castle, right? Ryan said calmly, and Baron Enzo and several lords behind him looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Was everything really as Baron Ryan guessed? Even the impact of last year's blizzard was within the plan? Knight Aset, you still have a chance to make up for it. Where is the nearest noble territory from here? The nearest one is the territory of Baron Solis. After accepting the territories of the 3 neighboring lords, Baron Solis owns 3 towns. The large plain in the middle surrounded by the 3 towns is his castle. It is said that standing in the castle, you can see endless golden wheat ears. Baron Solis, I remember he should be a noble of Golden Wheat County, right? It used to belong to Golden Wheat County, but there is only one city left in Golden Wheat County, and the rest of the territory was divided up. Until the orcs invaded the year before last, the Golden Wheat County city became a city jointly managed by the Earl and the Earl, and no one remembered Golden Wheat County anymore, but now it is managed by Viscount Landa. After Hanshin City County became a ruin, Viscount Landa and the former Hanshin City County nobles are all in that city. Ryan didn't know much about the geography of the Northwind Province, but it didn't seem strange that the 7 county governors of the Northwind Province had 8 counties. Forget it, now even the 8th county is gone. The land annexation between the 2 earls is a bit serious. Ryan was surprised. As a noble, he had not received any news before. The Golden Wheat City was actually occupied by the 2 earls. So, could there be some lands that were managed by the 2 earls? There is no shortage of unregistered households everywhere, especially in places where the emperor is far away. The Northwind Province is completely in line with this. If we enter the city, Can we get in? No, Viscount Lando will not allow any noble army to enter. Aset now answered whatever was asked, but still did not elaborate. Ryan could probably guess that Viscount Landa must have reached some kind of deal with the 3 earls of the Northwind province. Otherwise, it would be unreasonable not to let the Imperial Elders Council or the royal family personally order someone to supervise such a big thing. In other words, the terrible disaster brought by the orcs' southward march was actually hidden to a large extent? Tisk tisk tisk. Then go to the territory of Baron Solis. This does not need to be allowed. After all, the Baron does not have the qualifications and strength to stop Ryan's army from coming. Aset, you can serve as a logistics officer in my army. As long as I don't tell you and you don't go back, no one will know that you are responsible for losing the food, but Greystone Castle can't be defended. We can only rely on Baron Solis's castle and his people to resist the armies of Yinchuan County and Lian County. We just need to prevent the armies of those 2 armies from bypassing our defense line to the Earl's rear. Right, this is my territory, you can't break in. Earl Solis quickly agreed to Ryan's army to move in and drove his people to build a huge military camp. Fix the Chevaux de Frise. If you want to deal with Viscount Huck's cavalry, you can only rely on these things at present. After Ryan gave the order, he looked at Baron Solis, who was angry next to him. This is all for the victory of the war, isn't it, Mr. Solis? Ryan certainly wouldn't feel guilty. After all, according to his idea, Viscount Huck could know so accurately where the grain transport team had arrived. It was impossible to say that there was no secret communication with the nobles of Longshan County. What if it was this Baron Solis? There's nothing we can do, Baron Solis. Viscount Huck burned all the food on the way. We can only withdraw from Greystone Castle. Otherwise, the soldiers will starve to death in Greystone Castle in a day at most. Baron Solis didn't know what he was thinking, but he said with a grim face, if we lose Greystone Castle, the cavalry can easily appear behind the Earl. This is all your responsibility, Baron Ryan. Besides, I don't have that much food to supply you. Don't worry, Viscount Huck won't let it go. As for food, since you don't have it, Mr. Solis, please go and talk to other nobles around you, otherwise I can only continue to retreat to Longshan City to ask the Earl for food. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.